every minute with the fever dreams. I push a mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind you know I'll always manifest it.
Hello and welcome to My Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick. Let's turn the cameras here. Whew. I'm tired. Very tired day today. A long day. My back is hurting me a lot. Not feeling 100% at all. I'm just like slowly breaking down. The winter storms are not helping me here. And I'm trying to figure out what's going to be my future, what's going to be happening, because I cannot go like this much longer with the amount of pain that I'm going through on a daily basis. I may have to stop doing the show for a while. I'm going to try to hold off that for as much as I can until I reach the end of the year. And then if I can make it to the end of the year, I'm going to do a hard pause on the show and get myself back together again, and then hopefully be able to come back and do this. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what the future holds. I know I got a MRI for my back, and they're really focusing on my back to possibly maybe have surgery on it. I'm not sure. I really don't want to go through that road, and that because I know it's not going to just be one surgery. It's going to be like multiple surgeries, and it's not going to be uplifting at all for me. It's not going to be very helpful at all. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the future of this show. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what direction I'm going to take it. But there's going to be some changes in the upcoming year. So we'll see. But for now, we got to get on to some news. And I failed to set this up, but I could do this real quick. We're going to be catching up on Tyson DeLacruz because there's a lot of videos that I have not watched yet on this channel. And we got to go ahead and watch all of them because I think it's important for us to watch. But let me go ahead and set this up. It's the only thing that I forgot to set up. And let's watch and enjoy. I'm going to start off with Jason A here.
The battle to protect children online has begun. Meta alerting thousands of under 16-year-olds that their time on social media is almost up. As the December 10 deadline approaches, they're being advised to save their data before accounts are permanently deactivated.
From 10 December, social media platforms will have a responsibility to remove young Australians under the age of 16 from their platforms. With the support of the regulatory guidance being published today, there is no excuse for non-compliance. Platforms must take reasonable steps to detect and deactivate underage accounts, to prevent re-registration or
I think that's a good idea.
and to provide an accessible complaints process.
I didn't grow up with the internet, so
platforms
little kids could grow up without it.
in a way that is effective, private,
It needs to stop. The internet
they must communicate
is not for
openly
everyone.
and transparently with their users about the age assurance systems that they are using.
Yeah, kids
We
shouldn't
will
be
always
allowed
keep
on the
backing
internet.
Australian families and keeping Australian kids safe. I think the gratitude is that this law applies to everybody and that everybody will face the same cultural expectation that kids are not online on a social media account between the ages of 13 to 16. I think the sense that everybody will be facing a new world, everybody will need to interact with each other face to face the way that people used to do, I think is ultimately seen as a good thing when if you also ask those same kids, I suggest they'll be able to tell you about harms they or their friends have experienced online.
As Australia prepares to ban social media for teens, many other countries are watching very closely as they consider their own similar bans, aren't they?
Australian teens indeed will soon be signing out of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and more as the country's social media ban for kids under age 16 takes effect on December 10th. They likely won't be able
Yeah, but they'll find a way to get on
without
it.
controversy, though. Gabrielle
Their
Nadler takes a
parents
closer look.
to let them on. You know.
Australian teens are mentally preparing for the Luddite life. The country's social media ban is set to go into effect on December 10th, which will block all children under 16 from having accounts on popular apps like TikTok and Instagram. Companies that don't comply with the ban will face fines of up to $32 million. For some Australian children, like this influencer, the ban's impact will go beyond their social life.
I won't be able to do like a lot of collabs with like younger people and like their businesses because they're all
She
getting
needs to be
banned.
focusing on her classes.
Around the
at
world,
work.
people are looking to Australia as a model of how to address a growing problem affecting children's mental health. Denmark, Brazil, and Malaysia are already planning their own bans for teens, and the European Parliament has voted in favor of an EU-wide minimum age. However,
they'll
some
find a way
adults
to get
oppose
on.
the
They'll use
move,
their
arguing a
parents' phone
blanket ban
to get
is
on.
not the best solution.
You're not going to be able to beat that.
As a parent, I have 3 children. My role is to filter social media. Some platforms are more addictive than others. Cutting them off completely means sending children from the age of 18 unarmed, unprepared, and without parental guidance into a very complex world of social media.
Bullshit. No,
The hit these bans will take to social media companies' user numbers and time spent on platforms could have a major impact on sales, the bulk of which comes from advertising. eMarketer estimates that this year alone, the social media industry will make over $245 billion for more than 4 billion users worldwide.
This idea of restricting social media for kids really gaining steam around the world, Stuart.
Well, yesterday when Anthony Albanese was asked what he would do if he got to be a dictator, asked by Neil Mitchell, Radio Talkback King, what he would do if for 5 years he could be a dictator. This is what he had to say.
You are dictator for 5 years. What do you do? What's your first act?
The big frustrating thing, if I could do something, maybe ban social media, would be handy. Because
Why? What worries you about social media?
Look, I think a couple of things. One is keyboard warriors who can anonymously say anything at all.
Anything at all. They can just express themselves. They can say their opinions. It's terrible. Of course, he's already halfway there, getting his screws into these people with his combating misinformation, disinformation bill. Like, that's not dystopian enough, tyrannical enough. Now he's like, well, actually, if I could, I'd just get rid of the whole thing. Unbelievable.
I mean, it was very revealing to me because for 5 years you can do anything you want, right? And he banned social media. What about emissions? He could have saved the planet, but he was more concerned about. He
could have made us all cavemen overnight.
Exactly.
But it's dictator 101, isn't it? Because in order to be a dictator, you need to have total control of the narrative. You've got to ban social media. And as you say, I mean, he's trying to do the second best thing, which is to control what is put on social media and tell you that if you criticise him, it's misinformation.
Some students have shifted to smaller providers not on the government's banned list. Yope, a photo-sharing app listed as lifestyle, rocketing up the App Store charts.
Some of that's going to happen inevitably, but that's what teenagers do.
Tonight, a new report from the Queensland University of Technology found young users want social media improved, but don't believe bans are the answer and don't believe the age restrictions are enforceable.
Any attempt to just shut it off overnight, like they're going to do, is completely disregarding, our kids' intelligence.
If other platforms come up which are equally insidious and having that same sort of impact on our children, the ability to ban them too.
This will create a whack-a-mole situation where lawmakers race to keep up with tech innovators. But the minister insists the priority will be given to the apps that cause the most harm.
Big tech is innovative, agile, moves quickly, and so we must do the same. And we expect these reforms to look untidy, but that doesn't mean they're not worth doing.
For now, most of the popular apps on the banned list have begun informing users under 16 that their accounts will be shut down in the week ahead.
This needs to be compassionate and kind because it's going to be a huge transition for some young people. Questions at the end. Thanks. Thank you, Minister, so much for your leadership. We know that technology can be used as both a tool and a weapon. We want it to be a lifeline for women. But throughout the course of eSafety's 10 years, we've been consistently training frontline workers because we know that technology-facilitated coercive control is almost ubiquitous in family, domestic, and sexual violence situations. So with the generosity of DSS, we have stood up the world's first national technology facilitated abuse service. We've had 20,000 frontline workers utilize our self-help hub, where we have technology audits and updates beyond the cat feeders and the refrigerators. A perpetrator can use a line bike. And today we're talking about smart cars because they are essentially computers on wheels today, and we don't want them to become weapons on wheels. By 2031, 90% of all cars sold in Australia will have telematics systems. They already have GPS. You can remotely control or lock or start the car. You can prevent an EV, for instance, from being charged. And these are the types of things we're hearing from domestic frontline workers are happening to Australian women today. So we're here. We've worked with about 400 domestic frontline workers for really complex cases. Why a woman or her children are being gaslit, cannot figure out why her ex-partner knows where she is. And we've pretty much seen everything under the sun, including children used as pawns in the surveillance of their own custodial parent. And this can happen through the gifting of iPads or iPhones with spyware on them, a new gaming system with a camera that shows who the mother might have as a guest in her home. So again, we want technology to be a tool and a lifeline, not as a vector of abuse.
This should have been done
And so
10 years
we
ago.
continue to provide service to the broader public. And today we put out an online safety advisory specifically around smart cars. We've done a number of these around coercive control and changing attitudes of young men around romantic relationships, where they think that they should be able to have the passwords of their partners. They should be able to expect immediate responses to phone calls and texts. And we need to change these attitudes and make sure that we're keeping people safe with the technology that we use every day. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they should have gotten rid of that 10 years ago if they're going to play that bullshit game of taking away the internet for teenagers. I grew up without the internet. When I was a teen, we didn't even have cell phones at that time. So like the way of communicating with one another was face to face or over the phone. And you had to remember your friend's number in order to get in contact with them, because if you didn't have their number, you were shit out of luck. And if you didn't have a quarter for the payphones, then you were really shit out of luck. And I think this is a big problem that should have been taken care of 10 years ago. But, you know, they let this damage the kids of the future, and now they want to take it away from them. They want to take away the internet. And I don't know if that's going to be a smart move, knowing these kids and how they act and how they react to certain things. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. Listen, these kids, they know they have their strength by number, and they could overwhelm any government, any military, just by numbers. So, you know, and you have examples all over, right? Look at Chicago, look at New York, look at all the kids go out and causing a ruckus. And is there any accountability? Nope. Nobody's held accountable. Everybody is just free for all. Do whatever the hell you want and you won't get in trouble. And even with the justice system, you know, with our legal system, it's a joke. There's no true justice if you let the bad guys out every single time. It's like they commit a crime. That's okay. You'll be out in 24 hours. Do I have to pay bail? No, don't worry about it. We're just going to let you go so you can commit more crimes. Oh, yes. No, let me go do this and let me go kill that. And I'll be back here and I could get back out again. It's like, how many times have people have gone in jail for really like really bad crimes and get out the next day? Actually, get out the same day. I don't know, man. I'm just waiting to die, you know, because I know I'm going to die soon. We're all going to die soon. So I'm just waiting for that time to come already, you know? It's like, I can't wait to have that conversation with hopefully with baby Jesus if he's up there, you know? I got to have a conversation with him and let him know, listen, man, whatever you did here, nobody gives a fuck. They don't care. They're doing whatever they want. They really don't believe in you. And it's time for you to come back and do something about it, because I just feel like we're just all hypnotized and manipulated. That's all it is. We're all under hypnosis. They have you work hard and pay for your bills, pay for your food, do your own shit, and we'll pay you. We'll give you a check, but that check only could help you for so much, and they only give you so much per hour. So, you know, you're very limited. And it's gonna get worse. That's the thing. That's the people not realizing, and they're too contemplated and too comfortable in their surroundings. It's gonna get worse for you guys. It's not gonna get any better. It's just not. And that's why I keep rooting for the asteroid to hit Earth, because we don't deserve to be here. We don't deserve to be going through the shit that we're going through and the manipulation that our government continues to put us under. Like, we don't need this shit. You know, we weren't created for that. Like, it seems like we were just created to be slaves. And at birth, we're given a number. And it's like, here's your number. What's this? Your social security. It's your number for life. Memorize it because that's you. That's your identity. Your identity is these numbers that we give you, the government. That's crazy. And it's true. You know, we're all marked by the beast. We are already a part of the beast system. Why everybody's acting surprised? Not a surprise. It's reality. Look at all the shit that's going on. You think there's any accountability going on these days? Nope. Criminals are freaking lawmakers. Put it that way. We have criminals in Washington that continue to work in Washington and never be held accountable. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Adam Schiffner. Adam Sniff. Like I call him Adam Sniff. Yeah, Adam Schiffner. He's definitely one. Pelosi's another one. Croc is a full of shit. AOC is another crackhead. Like, these people, I don't know, man. If that's the direction government is going, I would like to be dead before a Democrat comes back in office. That's the truth. I'd rather be dead. Because I am not going to go through another fucking bullshit. I went through Joe Biden, and that was more than a fucking enough. I should be rewarded handsomely for surviving Biden. We all should be given a check. Here's a severance check. We're sorry that he had to be put through that bullshit of Biden 4 years. Yeah. But I don't see things getting any better. I don't. I wish I could be like, yeah, everything's going to be great. I'm looking forward to 2026. Yes, I can't wait. No. It's not going to work. Not with me. It's just not going to be good. 2026 is just going to be as bad as 25. Probably a little worse. You're going to have, like, very important people dying. You're going to have a lot of, like, I see, like, okay, like Celine Dion dying. I could see, like someone big in the music industry dying, like probably like a Madonna or something out of nowhere, passing away. And the whole world is in shock and everybody's like playing their music. And yeah, I can see that happening. And it's guaranteed to happen because death is guaranteed. We're not guaranteed life forever. No, we're only guaranteed a short time and you're gone. And that's just how it is. Just rolled up a couple of joints. And let's get right into this next story here, which is Tyson DeLacruz. So let me go ahead and set this up. Because StreamYard is acting crazy again, like usual. Let me make sure that's it. Yep. Okay, let's go ahead and watch Tyson DeLacruz.
Tuesday morning, protesters clashed with federal officers outside Brotex, trying to stop what they believe was an ICE raid.
America, we just witnessed one of the most chaotic immigration enforcement operations in recent memory when federal agents raided Brotex manufacturing in St. Paul, Minnesota, and professional protesters immediately swarmed the scene to physically block ICE vehicles from leaving. 14 people were detained in what authorities called a federal criminal investigation. But instead of letting law enforcement do their job, hundreds of activists formed human chains, blocking federal vehicles and got themselves pepper sprayed and tear gassed. But here's what's absolutely ridiculous. One activist complained it's not fun to get hit with pepper spray. Well, no crap. Maybe you shouldn't be interfering with federal immigration enforcement operations.
Enforced swarmed an area in St. Paul, once again clashing with protesters.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This case perfectly shows how organized activist groups have turned immigration enforcement into an absolute circus, where professional protesters think they can physically obstruct federal agents with impunity. Let me break down exactly what happened at BroTech, a paper manufacturing facility in St. Paul. Federal agents from ICE, FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security investigations executed a court, that's the key word there, court-authorized search warrant as part of what they called a federal criminal investigation.
A chaotic scene this morning outside a St. Paul business after an apparent raid. Hundreds of protesters gathered at the scene, growing increasingly agitated. Federal agents wearing Homeland Security and Drug Enforcement Agency vests held them back. At one point, the agents used mace to control some of the people in that crowd.
According to the Department of Homeland Security, agents detained 14 people on alleged immigration violations. One of those detained had past domestic abuse charges, and the other had allegedly illegal re-entered the United States. This wasn't some random sweep. This was a targeted operation based on specific intelligence about criminal activity.
Emotions reaching a boiling point as hundreds of protesters clashed with federal agents this morning outside of BroTech's paper manufacturing facility in St. Paul.
I just think it's an atrocity to be removing people from their families.
But instead of allowing federal agents to conduct their law runs, hundreds of protesters descended on the scene and began physically obstructing law enforcement. They formed human chains, blocking federal vehicles from leaving, and created a situation that forced agents to use tear gas and pepper spray to maintain control. These activist groups keep using the word peaceful to describe their actions, but standing up and physically blocking immigration enforcement is not peaceful. It is obstruction of justice. When you interfere with federal agents conducting a lawful operation, you are committing a crime.
I had a person peacefully documenting and recording who texted me and said, "It's not fun to get hit with pepper spray. I learned what it's like to get tear gas."
Slow here. That's why I'm done with StreamYard. Can't wait to get a new
forcefully
platform.
assaulted and shoved by officers.
Listen to this activist complaining it is not fun to get hit with pepper spray. I learned what it's like to get tear gassed. Well, no kidding, Mr. Activist. Maybe if you weren't interfering with federal law enforcement operations, you wouldn't have gotten pepper sprayed. These people act like they're victims when they're the ones creating the dangerous situation.
We saw somebody with an ICE vest, Homeland Security. We also saw U.S. Marshals, and doing crowd control is St. Paul Police. So you can see that there is a large group of protesters that are shouting at both the local and federal law enforcement officials that are here on scene.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face.
Taking out the stream, it looks a little choppy.
Jobs. Their job is simply to protest. That is their job. How else do you explain hundreds of people showing up within hours of a federal operation? These are professional activists who monitor police scanners and social media to mobilize whenever immigration enforcement happens. Of course, we've got the predictable sob story from family members claiming their relatives were just hardworking people who did nothing wrong. One woman called an activist saying, "This was my dad. That was my uncle."
And she called me and she said, "That was my dad. And that was my uncle." We stand with families. And she was brave enough to put that trust in our hands, and we were able to connect her with our legal supports and our legal partners.
Well, maybe you should have helped them get their immigration status right instead of expecting them to work illegally without consequences.
Exactly.
If your dad and your uncle were in this country illegally, that is not ICE's fault. That's their choice to violate federal immigration law.
Their problem.
They
Not
keep
our
doing
problem.
this. They're going to be breaking apart lots of families, and
Who cares? They don't belong here.
They'll see the outcome of what they've done, what they're truly taking away.
These family members act like immigration enforcement is some kind of surprise. If you're in this country illegally, you know there's always a risk of deportation. The solution isn't to have activists block federal agents. The solution is to follow immigration law in the first place. What's particularly interesting about these scenes, many of these protesters are still wearing masks. Why are some of these people still covering their faces? The pandemic is over, but these activists are still hiding their identities while interfering with federal law enforcement.
This is obviously not America.
In a statement, ICE says this raid was, quote,
What the fuck do you think it
law
is, you
enforcement
dumbass?
activity and served a search warrant in furtherance of a federal criminal investigation. Mayor Melvin Carter says
Well, they
St.
should
Paul
just
Police
start arresting
was
all
not
these people
involved
that
in
are
any way,
around
and his
and
office had no
interfering.
prior knowledge of the raid.
We work hard to make sure that folks know that our
Wait, that bitch again?
are not.
I've seen her before.
That's not the work that we do.
She's at this
Mayor
rally
Melvin
too.
Carter immediately distanced himself from this operation, saying
I've
St.
seen
Paul
her at the
police weren't
Chicago
involved
rally.
and had no prior knowledge.
And now she's
He
in
emphasized
Minnesota?
that St. Paul police officers are not and will never be ICE agents. This is exactly the kind of sanctuary city nonsense that creates these problems in the first place. When local officials refuse to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement, it forces ICE to conduct operations like this without local support, which makes everything more dangerous and chaotic. The BroTech facility features a mural honoring migrants, which tells you everything you need to know about the company's attitude towards immigration law. This wasn't some random target. This was a business that was so apparently employing people who weren't authorized to work in the United States.
Everything you are, you carry with you everywhere you go.
Pablo Calaca says immigration is a core part of who he is, an artist drawing on his experiences in South America, Europe, and now Minnesota.
My favorite part in this mural, the faces.
This is one of his most recent pieces in St. Paul,
Take his art with
depicting
him.
a mother carrying her child, looking for a way across a border. With them, a backpack filled with the essentials and the intangibles.
What are you carrying in your bag? Your life, your house, your home, your past,
Why
and
did
your
they
background,
leave?
your cultural background.
Why are they
Listen to
here?
what State Representative Lee Finke had to say about this operation. Mind you, this is the same person who advocates for bodily autonomy, trans rights, climate justice, and tree coverage. Basically, every progressive cause you can imagine. These people see immigration enforcement as just another social justice issue to protest.
The owners of this building welcome this project, this portrait of immigrant safety and travel.
The artist who painted this mural said what happened broke his heart and emphasized these are human beings as you and me with kids just trying to pass a wall and have a life. But here's the thing, there are legal ways to immigrate to America. When you bypass those legal processes, there are consequences. What happened in St. Paul wasn't spontaneous community outrage. This was an organized response by professional activist networks that monitor immigration enforcement and mobilize protests to interfere with federal operations.
I stand here in front of you as a refugee who came to this country, as somebody who has stood up to defend our undocumented communities and received huge backlash for wanting to make sure
That's
that they have
enough.
the
Enough
healthcare
of this
that they
games,
deserve.
man. They're playing these
And not to
games.
sit here as the mayor-elect
Same
and
shit
watch this
over
happen
and over
unfold
and
in our
over
city.
again.
I want you all to know that I am standing with you,
It's like
not
copy,
as
like,
somebody
trip,
who
like
is in
it's like
government, but as somebody who is from an impacted community.
The future mayor of St. Paul spoke at a rally and said, as someone who came to this country as a refugee and
It's
has
like a
stood
rinse
up
and
to
repeat.
defend our
Rinse and repeat.
undocumented
Rinse and
communities,
repeat.
she positioned herself not as a government official, but as someone from an
I
impacted
don't understand how
community.
people
This, my
that come
friends,
from
is
other
the
countries
problem.
could
When
be
you
in our
elect
government and
officials who
dictate
see
us
themselves as
as
advocates for
mayors.
illegal
That should be
immigrants
illegal.
rather than enforcing
We
federal
should not
law,
have
you get
foreigners
chaos
as
like what happened
any
in St.
part of our
Paul.
We know
government.
that at least two,
Even the lower
multiple
parts
people
of our
were taken into
government should
custody
not
by
have
both federal and
illegals
local
running it.
law
I'm
enforcement
sorry, no.
during the
If you weren't
protests.
born in this country,
that was
you
why
have
they were
no
taken into
say in this
custody. That our
country.
photojournalist David Peterlin saw that with his own eyes.
They arrested one guy when he was going to work. Before they
Oh, you heard
went in
the lady in the
house.
back.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's insane.
He got
It's
because
insane.
he got arrested.
You know,
And now what
if
are
they're
you gonna do
criminals,
about it?
I can see it.
What are you gonna do?
They're doing bad, yeah. But if they're making a living, man, leave them alone.
These networks have
If
communication
they're making a
systems,
living,
legal
leave them
support
alone
teams,
because
and
they go to
trained
work.
constitutional observers who show up to
I've never done
document
this
and
before,
interfere.
Tyson, but I'm gonna have to pause you there, dude, because it's already pissing me off. Oh, they're making a living. Let them work. Let them stay because they're working. Are you gotta be fucking kidding me, right? So we have terrorists in our country. Oh, and because they're working, they get to stay here, right? That's okay, right? But when they blow shit up and kill thousands of people, and then we're like, oh, why didn't we get them? Why we didn't get them out of the country? Are you fucking kidding? We could have gotten them out a long time ago, but your stupid ass want to play interference and block and say, no, let's keep them. They're good people because they work. They make a living They're working. So they get to stay here because they're working. Where does that make any motherfucking sense? It doesn't make sense. Like, no, if they want to work, they could go to their country and go work in their country and go live in their country and eat in their country, shit in their country, eat the resources, be the locust that you are, but take the money from your government, not ours. Because the taxpayers are the ones that are funding the government. The taxpayers should stop sending tax money to the government, and you'll see how fast the government will fucking react. You know, they'll have a fucking heart attack if they don't get their money. It's all about money, and right now these illegals are taking way too much from us, billions of dollars, and yet you don't see no protests. You don't see any marches or people burning down businesses and going chaotic and crazy. That's our taxpayer money just being burnt away. And you got nothing to say about it? Yeah. This country and the world is going to hell real fast. Real fast. And I see it happening too. And it's going to be so bad for every one of you. I don't plan on being here. I don't think I'll be alive when that happens. But it's not going to be good.
Here with law enforcement. They call it constitutional observation, but it's really organized obstruction of federal agents trying to enforce immigration law. When protesters physically block federal vehicles to interfere with law enforcement operations, there are real consequences. Federal agents had to use tear gas and pepper spray because these activists created a dangerous situation that could have resulted in some serious injuries.
But of course, people are on high alert in the community. A lot of neighbors have come over to see what's been going on. We know Melvin Carter, St. Paul mayor, was here as well. He was talking to members of his own department. We heard a little bit of that conversation, just overheard him talking to St. Paul police, asking them a little more about just what they were doing here. Of course, they cannot enforce federal immigration law. They are just here strictly for crowd control.
The activists complain about getting pepper sprayed, but they created the situation that would require crowd control measures. When you physically obstruct federal agents, you're not a peaceful protester. You are interfering with law enforcement, and there are consequences for that.
Protesters spilled into this neighborhood on the east side of St. Paul Tuesday morning.
They started in that house,
where they shouted at federal agents carrying out an investigation inside a home.
These activists continue to call immigration enforcement assault on our community and claim federal agents use chemical weapons against Minnesotans. This is the kind of inflammatory rhetoric that turns routine law enforcement into dangerous confrontation. America, what happened in St. Paul perfectly illustrates how professional activist networks have turned immigration enforcement into a dangerous circus. When federal agents try to conduct lawful operations, hundreds of protesters immediately mobilize to physically obstruct law enforcement. These aren't concerned community members. These are professional protesters whose sole job is to interfere with federal immigration enforcement. The fact that they show up within hours with organized legal support and communication networks proves this is a coordinated response. The complaint about getting pepper sprayed is absolutely ridiculous. If you don't want to get pepper sprayed, don't physically block federal vehicles and interfere with law enforcement operations. It's that simple. The family members crying about their relatives being detained should have helped them get their immigration status right instead of expecting them to work illegally without consequences. Immigration law exists for a reason, and violating it has consequences. Mayor Carter's refusal to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement creates exactly these kinds of dangerous situations. When local officials won't work with ICE, it forces federal agents to conduct actions without local support, making everything and everyone more chaotic. The mural honoring migrants at BroTech tells you everything you need to know about why this business was targeted. Companies that openly celebrate employing people without work authorization shouldn't be surprised when federal agents show up with search warrants. 14 people were detained in this operation, including somebody with domestic abuse charges and another who illegally re-entered the country. This wasn't some random sweep. This was was targeted enforcement based on specific criminal activity. The professional protesters can complain all they want about getting tear gassed, but when you interfere with federal law enforcement, there are consequences. Maybe next time you'll think twice before physically obstructing ICE operations. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, thank you, Tyson, for a great upload. But that was the first time I ever truly stopped Tyson's video right in the middle for anger. These people, they come into this country, right? They have nothing and they expect everything from us, right? They want all these hand-me-downs. So we're so gullible and we help, right? Because yeah, why not, right? Let's help them out and so forth. But this was only supposed to be temporarily, and not only that, but they're supposed to be going back to their country. Now, how long have they been here is the greatest question, because we have a lot of violators that are here that like overstayed their visas. We have a lot of people that are like hiding from the government because of these overstayed visas, and we got a lot of criminals from around the world here in the US. That's why the US is not safe. You think you're safe where you're at? You truly think you're safe? Okay. Yeah. I got a bridge to sell you here in Connecticut. It's let me tell you, you have the pick of the litter because we have a lot of bridges, and you can have one. All right, let's go ahead and let's go to some more news here, and then we'll get back into Tyson DeLacruz because I got a lot more to watch on his show here. Go ahead and put this up.
The chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, for more on this. Mr. Chairman, good to talk to you, and thanks for taking the time today. I just want to put up on the screen here some facts and figures so folks at home can truly understand the depth of the fraud here. This was in the Minnesota Housing Stabilization Program. The predicted cost was $2.6 million annually. You can see the actual costs.
I go from 2.6
at least 10 times, closing in on 50.
Okay, I had to stop this. Okay, this is the potential fraud in Minnesota. This is the Housing Stabilization Program, right? And it predicts a cost of $2.6 million annually, right? But in 2021, it went to 21 million, 22. These are the Biden years. I hope you guys realize these are the Biden years. So it went up to 21 million, then went to 42 million. So it doubled. And from one year to another, it doubled. And then almost doubled again. Oh, well, not even double. It's like a quarter more added on to 74 million. And now you're at 2024 at 104 million. And so far in the first half of 2025, we're at 61 million. If we doubled this number, we got 122 million. Are you kidding me? And this is only in Minnesota. Does this scream fraud? Does this scream like they're funneling and stealing money from the taxpayers? And yet I don't see nobody out there protesting and saying, give me back our money. Stop wasting our money. Send these people back. No, you don't see that.
Times. First half of 2025, they spent $61 million on that. Other examples of alleged fraud: Feeding Our Future program, $250 million, autism treatment, $14 million, Medicaid, $18.5 million for services that were never provided.
God.
And allegations, Mr. Chairman, that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, either turned a blind eye to this or actually empowered people to do this through political correctness. What do you want to know?
Well, first of all,
there's a lot of treasonous things going on.
Entailed a whole menu of government programs, social programs, and that's kind of the mojo for the Democrat Party now. They want to put more and more money into social programs, but yet they refuse to accept responsibility for any type of waste, fraud, and abuse. What we know is the state employees in Minnesota rang the bell. They blew the whistle that there was massive fraud, and yet Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, apparently turned a blind eye to that for fear of political retaliation from the large voting bloc of Somalis.
Yeah, well, you just pointed that out. What the employees of the state were saying. This is from the Minnesota Department of Human Service employees. They posted this on X Saturday. They said, quote, Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. As staff, we firsthand witnessed and observed fraud happening, yet we were shut down, reassigned, and told to keep quiet, sometimes more. There are even allegations, Mr. Chairman, of retaliation against whistleblowers here.
What's what it sounds like? If you disregard someone and reassign them to another position, that's retaliation. And, you know, Democrats used to say they protected the state and federal employees who work for the government. But what we found is anytime you blow the whistle against the Democrat, you face retaliation. That's wrong. But the whole fraud scheme is wrong. And we want to bring those state employees in. We want to talk to them, see all the correspondence that was had between the state agencies and the governor and the attorney general to see why they did not do anything at that particular moment. Such a disregard for taxpayer dollars is criminal in itself. But to do it for political gain, that's even worse. Hopefully, we can set an example and hold people accountable for this type of negligent abuse of tax dollars, because I think this is not just a Minnesota thing. I think you're going to see this in other blue states that all they talk about, these Democrat governors, is more and more social programs, more and more SNAP benefits, more and more Medicaid, but yet they refuse to admit that there's any level of fraud. So hopefully this is the tip of the iceberg, and I think this investigation could lead to many more investigations in other states and hopefully finally some savings of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, you would think, you know, if they're doing it in Minnesota, that's not the only place where it's happening. For his part, here's what Governor Walz said, defending his actions or lack thereof. Listen here.
My message is simple on this. You commit fraud in Minnesota, you're going to prison. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are. Anybody who wants to help us in that, we welcome that. But sitting on the sidelines and throwing out accusations, and let's be very clear, demonizing an entire population and lying to people about the safety and security of this state is beneath that.
Just got a few seconds left, Mr. Chairman. Your response to that? I mean, this is happening right under his nose.
He's trying to play the race card here. He's trying to play the discrimination card. No, the problem is Tim Walz. The problem is he was warned of this massive amount of fraud, and yet he turned a blind eye for political reasons. That's why he turned a blind eye. So we want to stop this from happening, obviously, but we want to find and hold people accountable for allowing this to happen and see if this is being replicated in other states.
All right. Well, we look forward to the results of your investigation. Thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah, I'm looking for that too.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Steve Ducey.
All right,
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Keep it moving. We still got more to go.
Welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. We'll turn our attention back to the immigration crackdown as the Trump administration now shifted its immigration sweep into the southeast. And today, after weeks of speculation on exact timing, we're seeing the first wave in New Orleans. The Department of Homeland Security saying federal agents are now in the city. They are targeting people they say were released from jail instead of being turned over to ICE. Let's be joined right now on the ground by Fox's Sarah Allegre. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. What exactly do we know about this operation at this moment?
Well, Andy Mack, first and foremost, I want to talk about the atmosphere here in New Orleans. It is relatively quiet on this area, or throughout this area, really. We know that the operation is now underway, and we followed this in other portions of the country, in Chicago and Charlotte. Remember Charlotte's Web, and now we're seeing it here in New Orleans. The DHS actually announcing a little bit earlier, they're calling it Catahoula Crunch. It's likely named after the Louisiana state dog. We know the feds, they're trying to send a message to these sanctuary cities. They want to get these criminals out of here. Now, looking at these Hispanic communities, I've been there talking with them today. They're just feeling on edge right now, and especially after word spread of this operation. Some local shops have been closing up for the day with signs that say no ICE access in this business. Now, one local business leader I talked to, she says, she's worried about what this means for the economy here.
The concern is coming not just from people who are undocumented, but it's also coming from those who have citizenship status, who are permanent residents, who have work visas. And in most cases, they're not working at all. So they're communicating with their employers and letting them know, hey, I don't feel safe traveling to and from work. I mean, it's real. The fear is very real.
Profits tell me they're even getting these whistle kits that you're seeing from activists over in Chicago. It's a quick way to let people know if ICE is in the area or detaining anyone. Now, earlier, DHS released mugshots of people they're calling some of the most dangerous criminal illegal aliens who are back on Louisiana streets because of sanctuary policies here in New Orleans. Now, some of their charges, you're looking at their mugs, include aggravated assault, child endangerment, domestic violence as well, grand theft auto. DHS says operations like this are sending a message to other sanctuary cities across the country, really.
We're seeing that these criminal illegal aliens are exiting the jails and going back onto New York or Chicago or these other sanctuary streets to re-perpetuate their crimes. We're talking about hundreds of murders, hundreds of sexual predators, drug traffickers, the worst of the worst. These other sanctuary city politicians, they should agree to hand over those individuals, honor those detainers, and then we won't have to flood the zone with our ICE law enforcement.
Yeah, and federal agencies saying the goal here is to make 5,000 arrests here in New Orleans. And I know we've been covering this as well. The kind of tandem event that we're seeing also in Minnesota with a similar operation going on there. That one, though, Andy Mack, targeting immigrants from Somalia.
And you made an interesting note right off the top that it is quiet there, although they're doing with this Catahoula crunch. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Are you seeing a presence at all anywhere in New Orleans?
You know, we are seeing some videos populate over social media, working on verifying that when we're looking at arrest overall. But Andy Mack, I've spent the whole day throughout the community kind of driving around some of these field offices where we know these command centers are located. I haven't seen any protests. I know that there was one rather earlier this week on Monday. But overall, it looks like the community here has really taken advice from other cities that have recently gone through it. Chicago with Midway Blitz, Charlotte with Operation Charlotte's Web. They're hunkering down. They're not showing up to work. We've seen similar stories, and I've reported on similar matters when covering this story in other states. People are staying home, and they're just hunkering down during this time. And it's quite a different atmosphere, at least for when I first started covering this story back in Chicago.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 5,000 kind of number for those arrests, similar to what we saw potentially in Memphis. I think 3,500 or so was the number there. All right, Sarah, thank you so much. I appreciate your time here on Live Now.
All right, so let me see. I got to do a lineup here because I got some add-ons. Let me just fix this and then just a couple of little things here I want to watch. So then I got to set it up. I got to like resize it. And then we're going to watch this now. This is coming in from Jason A. Oh, my computer's acting really crazy today. No, it's not the computer, it's StreamYard. Everything's just not working properly. So it's kind of like slow. Everything like that I'm doing on StreamYard, like, and it's only on StreamYard that is like super slow. So, and that every time they do updates and they do stupid shit to their system, it slows everything down on my end, and it's like everything's like kind of like 4 seconds slow, and that's very slow because things should be like quick, but every time StreamYard does this shit, it always fucks up. All right, let's watch this. Slow, I'm telling you, slow.
So many years back into the 1990s, if you want to see what's planned for the West tomorrow, look at China today. And in China, you have millions of cameras in the cities. They can find you in literally minutes, wherever you are. These, facial recognition cameras, etc. And they have this social credit system. So you get points if you behave in ways that suit the government. You lose points, credits, if you behave in ways that doesn't suit the government. And if you lose enough credits, then you are excluded from mainstream society. What happened during COVID to people that wouldn't have the jab and refused to wear masks? They were excluded from mainstream society. Exactly. That was a pre-run in so many ways of where they want society to go. If you didn't like COVID, well, you're not going to like what's planned coming up. So in China, if you lose enough credits, you can't go on a train, you can't get on a plane, you cannot function in a mainstream society. And this whole social credit system is moving very fast into the West. The digital ID, the digital currency, the control by AI, the control of everything via AI. You know, you're seeing some supermarkets being introduced now where you need a QR code to go in. Well, what if you don't have a smartphone? What if you don't want to be part of that system? Well, you don't get in the supermarket then.
You pay with your fingerprint too.
Yeah, of course you can. It's the same thing. It's all this unfolding control system.
The UK government has released a video showcasing their digital ID system that's set to be rolled out next year. And in this video, they attempt to paint anyone who uses a physical ID as someone who's just clumsy and outdated.
Can I get a pint of lager, please? Yeah, of course. Can I just see some ID?
Yeah, no worries.
Let's got someone here.
Hi, can I have a pint of Christmas cracker, please? So we're changing the law so that next Christmas, young people will have their ID on their phone, so they won't have all of the hassle of needing to get ID or leaving their ID at home or their paper ID getting lost or damaged. So it means that giving your ID is safer than it's ever been before.
Safer than it's ever been before. I'm not too sure about that. There are still concerns around digital IDs and the security around them. What do you think of that ad?
Well, the ad left a very sour taste in my mouth, I must say. Depicting anyone that prefers the old school ID as somehow stupid or bumbling is just insulting. But I mean, I must admit, on this one, I might be a little contrarian on Sky. Here in New South Wales, we do have our driver's license on our Service New South Wales apps. And I must say, I don't even carry a wallet around anymore. I've got my debit card on there, my license, everything. Now I can see Kel looking a bit concerned over there. But I, you know, as a Gen Z native, it's just, I can't get around the old school paper stuff. I'm sorry. So I'm a fan of what we have here in New South Wales, but I do not think it should be mandated. And I think claiming that anyone who prefers the old school system is somehow stupid, I think that's really wrong.
Yeah, I think there are still concerns that no one should really be forced into getting this digital ID.
And also concerns about what it's really all about. I mean, the impression that I get from that commercial is they're lying to you. They're telling you you need this on your phone so that you can buy a beer, only if you're young or look young. That's not what it's all about. This is an app which on your phone, I take it, can track wherever you are and track every movement. You will live in a surveillance society where if the government wants to, it can know where you are at any minute, any time of the day, any day of the week, and it's all there, and they can check where you were at 11 o'clock last Thursday morning. I just think it's very close to Big Brother is watching you.
Yeah, I agree.
And that worries me.
I think so too. I think there are concerns when everyone is forced to sign up to this. If you want to, and it's easier, and you want to go out to the pub and buy whatever beer you want and not be clumsy, sure. But I agree with you, Kel. I think there's
not optional. There's something going on. There's another agenda. Remember they brought out this health thing where you can have this My Health and everything your doctor tells you ends up being loaded there. And they keep reassuring you, no, it's going to be perfectly all right. Only authorised individuals will be able to get into it, including the sales staff at the local chemist. But, just authorised. But you could opt out. So I opted out, and I'm not in it. I'm not part of it. When they bring in a digital ID and they say, you can't opt out, you're getting this whether you want it or not, they've got another agenda.
I think so. Absolutely right.
The digital side of this is the other side of the control system, where if you have a digital ID, you cannot take part in mainstream society without the digital ID. That's the idea in the end.
Which was just proposed by the Prime Minister here.
Just proposed by Keir Starmer.
Right, with the reason being illegal immigration, which I would love to get into.
Yeah, well, what's kind of interesting, you know, because
problem, reaction, solution.
I do say, I've said over the years many times, this cult plays the long game. And I also came up with this phrase, problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem, blame someone else for it, and then openly offer the solution to the problems you have covertly created. And immigration went off the charts under Tony Blair when he was Prime Minister. In fact, some years after he left office, someone who was in that group came out and said the plan was to open the doors to immigration to such an extent, these were his words, that Britain was culturally changed in a way that was irreversible. Okay? Who's been the big promoter now of digital ID to meet the problem of immigration? Tony Blair, the man who's actually the handler of Keir Starmer. So they play the long game. They create the problem, and then they come out and say, here's the solution to the problem, which just advances the agenda. And so the digital ID is connected to the digital currency, the central bank digital currencies. And the key thing about digital currencies is they are programmable. Programmable so that from a central point, you can dictate what people can buy, what the digital currency will work to buy and what it won't work to buy. Also programmable in an area that they will operate within, and outside of it, they won't. So if you want to create, which is now a big thing that's becoming more and more obvious, more and more people are becoming aware of it, this 15-minute city isolation zoning of people, so that everything they say will be, this has come from people like the World Economic Forum, but it's much wider now. Everything that you need, they say, will be within a 15-minute cycle ride or walk from your home. And all these cameras that are going up all over the cities, like in London, they're for various excuses, like various zones. If you enter them, then you get fined if you've got the wrong vehicle, or the congestion charge and all that stuff. All these cameras, number plate cameras, the longer term reason for them is to police these zones which people are kept in. Now, what better way of keeping them in a zone than their currency will not work if you leave the zone? How are you going to buy anything even if you do leave the zone? And this programmable money is the most fundamental deletion, potentially, of freedom.
I totally agree. I 100% agree. It is like you're being controlled. Every purchase you make gets monitored. They either allow you or not allow you to purchase things. Let's say if you wanted to, I don't know, buy a weapon, and you just go over there to let's say the range, and you go to the gun store and he's like, oh, I want to buy this gun, and you go and they run your digital shit and they could block you. They could say, oh, nah, it says here you have too many weapons. We can't sell you this one. I'm sorry. Like, what's going to come to like what sells, right? Because the future is going to be very weird for us. Like, it's not like too far. We're going to be paying with our fingerprints. Our fingerprint is what's going to be paying. Like, to open up your phone, your little devices, your little magical devices, it takes a fingerprint to open it up. Mine's do. A lot of the iPhones do. This is an Android. This is a S23 Ultra, and you need a fingerprint to open up the phone for it to function. Or you could put a passcode, which I have the option. There's a passcode that you could put, and it'll open it up. It'll bypass the fingerprint. But for this phone, for me, the fingerprint is what opens it. And even when I'm going to purchase something, let's say on Amazon or whatever, and I put my card down, like, I need to put my fingerprint for it to go ahead and activate the card for purchase. It's already happening. They've already been training us. That's why they're trying to get the kids off the internet. Because what's coming, it's not going to be good. And, I hope you enjoyed your freedoms, to this point. But now it's going to be like, it's going to get like wild. I think 2026 is going to be so, like, with ICE and things that are going to be happening with ICE. You have police officers going against ICE. You know that? Did you know that there's police officers that are telling residents to call, if they see ICE agents, to call the police department so the police could handle the situation? Like, what? Yeah, you don't believe me? Hold on. I think there's a story on that. Let me see if I could bring it up here. Here we go. I got a story right here. Let's watch together.
I know the recent reports that are circulating among the media are concerning. I just want to be clear. We are not confirming anything that has been in any of these reports, and we don't have any official information ourselves. What we are aware of is what has been happening in our community. And our involvement, the mayor's leadership on that, council members and other elected officials in the city, did not start today. That's been going on. The fear that the community has been experiencing, immigrant communities have been experiencing in this city, is real. I have been meeting with pastors, imams, business owners that are having a real impact in our city. People are afraid to go to church. They're afraid to go to worship. They're not spending money at a lot of our immigrant businesses in the city. And from a public safety perspective, the fear of people to cause the police is something that to call the police in a time of need is something that harms everyone. We don't need that. If people are able to prey on certain people in our community, to victimize them, to rob them, because they think those folks are less likely to call the police, that makes everyone in the city less safe. It does absolutely nothing for public safety. So I just need to be clear, as our mayor has stated, the Minneapolis Police Department does not work with federal law enforcement for the purpose of conducting immigration enforcement. We don't provide information to federal immigration authorities. We don't ask people about their immigration status. Our mission is clear: to protect life, to uphold the law, and to maintain safety for all people.
Well, you guys are not upholding the law.
Over the last 24 hours, I have addressed every roll call in this city from last night into this morning. Not because of these news reports, but because I have been concerned. Both over the weekend, we've been getting reports, increased reports of immigration-related activity from members in our community. We can't verify that, but we know people in the community are heightened, that they're insane around immigration. Objective is straightforward as a police department. I want to try and minimize our officers' exposure to any of that type of enforcement activity and only respond when there is a legitimate public safety issue that we are responsible to our community to provide. And that means when there are threats of violence, when there is actual violence, or when there's property destruction. In moments like this, I know the tensions are high. I know how real the fear is in our community. People are going to want to speak out, to protest, and to exercise their First Amendment rights. Those are the rights of everyone in our community. And I want to be clear that we will absolutely defend people's rights to do just that.
That's on my shit. You need to have a permit.
That if demonstrations do happen around any type of immigration raid, that they remain nonviolent, so that we can keep everyone in our community safe, so that we minimize the risk of any tragedy happening, or the immigrant communities that are already suffering to suffer that much more if there is destruction in our neighborhoods. Our officers are committed to serving a diverse city. Mayor, council member referenced, we have many officers who themselves are immigrants, and many of us are deeply connected to the immigrant community in our city. With that, we are also working around revisions to our immigration enforcement policy. That has been in the works for weeks. We've obtained feedback from community and community-based organizations, and we will be issuing additional guidance this week to our officers.
I guess they don't know how the system works. I guess they need to be re-educated. Do we have to open up now re-education camps now to re-educate the citizens? Like, I don't understand. Where are we going with this? It's like I feel like I'm reliving this, and it's like a story that I've already been through, and it's like I have to see this outcome again. It's so played out already, and the people are just so hypnotized. They're hypnotized. I there's no other words to. What other words can you say to these people? Like, I don't get it. To this point right now, I'm so fucking confused. These people need to leave. They can't be here anymore. They gotta go. They stayed. They had a great vacation, and now that's it. The time is up. You gotta get going. You gotta go back to your home country. It's fucking StreamYard. It keeps fucking up, and it's just getting on my nerves. When I take the time off, I'm gonna find another. See if I can find another company, because I'm already tired of StreamYard. I'm tired of their system. It's so getting on my nerves, and it's like it continues to do the same shit over and over and over. It's like, what the fuck, man. All right, let's check out this story here.
Benefits for millions of Americans are hanging in the balance as the USDA threatens to cut off food assistance funding to more than 20 Democratic-led states in a showdown over sensitive personal data. The fight pits state privacy concerns against a federal push to root out what the Trump administration calls waste, fraud, and abuse. If blue states don't comply, SNAP benefits for over 42 million Americans could be on the line. Most in the program are at or below the poverty line, and in households that include children, seniors, or someone with a disability. This all comes as new rules are now in effect for SNAP beneficiaries that mean more people will have to work or volunteer in order to get benefits. Let's get some insight by turning to Gina Platanino, SNAP director at the
I'm gonna go volunteer for the paranormal.
Thank you for having me.
Go to the paranormal
big changes to SNAP says
society here.
The recent government shutdown has given the government a platform to completely deconstruct the program, in her words. What does that mean to you?
It means that they're posturing. It's a lot of propaganda in terms of them not taking responsibility that for the first time in history, SNAP benefits did not go out in time. SNAP is the most regulated program that we have in the federal government. So it's just really, it's not surprising that the secretary is saying this considering their actions in November.
President Trump says he will withhold SNAP benefits for people in California if officials don't hand over potentially sensitive data, such as the names and immigration status of recipients. The Agriculture Secretary says data revealed by 29 states recently showed 186,000 people who've died.
That's going to go to the Supreme Court.
Aid, and some 356,000.
I'm telling you, it's going to end up in the Supreme Court.
Do you agree with the mission of ending fraud and abuse?
Absolutely. The biggest fraud that we have in SNAP is something called skimming, where we have criminals stealing the benefits of individuals who rely on these benefits. But in terms of the data that you just mentioned, it hasn't been validated, and we don't know where those numbers are coming from, which it really doesn't capture what states are reporting.
So other than going after criminals who are skimming, how does the country make sure that people who are receiving the benefits should be receiving the benefits?
SNAP is the most regulated program that we have in terms of quality control. Individuals have to fill out an application that is quite lengthy, providing information. Once they submit that application, they have to do an interview. Once they do an interview, they have to submit a verification. Once they do that and their case is adjusted, they have to do ongoing reviews to ensure that the information hasn't changed. All of this is validated, checking social security numbers, checking employment numbers, and that information is collected by the state agency to see if there are any changes.
So what's falling apart then if the federal government says almost 200,000 people who've died are still receiving aid?
Yeah.
That information hasn't been validated. We don't know where those numbers have come from, as USDA has refused to say that they're coming with this information.
It's how did they get the fucking
don't necessarily
information then?
think that is true, considering the 60 plus years that USDA has been operating this program with state agencies. That data it's not accurate. So it'll be interesting to see if the USDA actually releases where they're getting this information.
Do you think there's anyone who's receiving benefits who shouldn't be?
The way that it works is that individuals cannot receive benefits if they are getting benefits elsewhere. They have to close the case. So sometimes it may appear, but like I said, there are so many ways that state agencies are constantly monitoring this, both automatically and physically, in terms of coming out with individuals who are getting benefits. It automatically flags it for them to ensure that the program is operating correctly.
I imagine this recent threat by the president to withhold aid for California may put those who are receiving aid and rightfully receiving that aid in a precarious position.
Well, it's not new, right? So this stems out from an executive order that the president issued out in February that he wanted more data into these programs, and USDA went ahead and issued this request, which was, again, unprecedented because they already have systems in place to be able to do this. There was two lawsuits, one a private lawsuit and another one for state agencies. There is currently an injunction, a hold on this, where the judge says that USDA cannot do this at the moment. We know that they're going back to court next week from the new request that USDA made in November, saying that they needed to, again, submit this data.
If you had the governor's ear, would you suggest that the state not reveal this data, even if it means people lose their benefits?
There are 3 different levels of laws currently protecting this information. USDA has been sending the information that they need. There's no guarantee that the federal government has a place to really capture sensitive data. It's millions of individuals, and to have state agencies go through all of this work at a time where, due to the administration's inaction, they had to scramble to try to issue benefits on time and then recalculate benefits. It's just administrative burden. And how can you trust an administration that, the 95-year-old's information that is being sent over is going to be safe? There's no guarantee that the administration will keep this information safe, including social security number, date of births, anything that could be causing for identity theft. And this is everyone, and it's millions of cases.
Nothing's safe at this point.
We teach individuals
What are you
to
talking about?
hold your information and share it.
Anything connected to the internet,
traditionally sent
to the internet can be manipulated.
They send
I've been talking about this shit for years.
Secure. What the administration
Since the
is
beginning of
requiring,
when I started my damn show.
in the last 60 years.
Okay, we'll watch what happens. Gina Platanino, that's the time we have for the topic at this point. Thank you so much for joining us from the Director of Food Research Action. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, anything and everything connected to the internet can be manipulated. End of story. keep it moving.
They don't like. One of the things is the auto pen. Everything he signed, almost with the exception of the pardon of his wonderful son, Hunter, just about everything he signed was not signed by him. He had no knowledge of it. He didn't know what it was. People sitting around the beautiful Resolute desk knew exactly what it was. And those people are guilty, in my opinion, of a major crime. Everything that was signed by that auto pen, the man operating the auto pen, and I'm sure there are more than one because I think some of the people can operate it themselves. Some of the high-level people operated themselves. They would just go in and sign his name with an auto pen onto very important documents, not only pardons, but policy, maybe cafe standards, okay, as an example. Who signed cafe? If you ask Biden, what's a cafe standard? He would have absolutely no idea. So he'd say, where is the cafe located? The guy didn't know anything. Look, that just shows you what a rigged election can be. But you understand what I'm saying. Thank you.
You've had conversations
I did with Jensen.
Right. So
smart man.
In your conversations with him, have you kind of given a sense of where you are with export controls and the types of chips that NVIDIA can give to China?
He knows very well. He's done an amazing job. NVIDIA, very good. Yeah.
Mr. President, when do you expect for phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan to be implemented? And
Well, it's going along well. You know, they had a problem today, I understand, with a bomb that went off. Hurt some people pretty badly, probably killed some people. They're telling me it just happened. But it's going on very. We have peace in the Middle East. People don't realize it. We have tremendous support. 59 countries. There's tremendous support. But phase 2 is moving along. Yeah, it's going to happen pretty soon.
Mr. President, did you speak with House Republican leadership about your decision to pardon Congressman Henry Cuellar? And are you concerned that you made a vulnerable Democrat perhaps less vulnerable with that decision?
It didn't matter. He's a respected person. He was treated very badly because he said that people should not be allowed to pour into our country. And he was right. He didn't like open borders. He was on the border. You know, he represents a very respected man. He represents the people on the border. And he saw what was happening. And as soon as he made that statement, I then said, I'll bet he gets indicted. And that's what happened. You know, I put out my truth from that. Well, I did a truth. Wonderful truth. We love truth. But what happened is he got indicted for speaking the truth. And his wife got indicted, Imelda. And that's sort of a first. Usually they leave the wives alone, right? Don't they, Congressman? Typically they indict somebody, put him in jail for the rest of his life, but the wife could just sit home and cry, or she'll find a new man. You know? A lot of times they find a new man that makes them much happier. In fact, a lot of times they like that man better than the one that's in jail.
That's funny. All right, let's keep it moving.
Terrifying truth is that the Afghanistan debacle is just a small part of Democrats' complete and total betrayal of the American people during the Biden years. The tragedy that we just witnessed the day before Thanksgiving is a reminder that untold thousands of terrorists, gang members, and criminals were invited into our country and remain here to this very day. The border is now secure, thanks to President Trump, but the threat in our interior remains real and urgent. These public safety threats are already inside our land, and President Trump was elected on a promise to find and remove them, and he has already taken significant steps and made significant progress towards fulfilling this promise. But there is more work to be done because President Trump believes that he has a sacred obligation to reverse the calamity of mass, unchecked migration into our country. As a result, the Trump administration is now actively re-examining all of the Afghans imported into the country by Joe Biden. Any individual who threatens our national security or our citizenry will be subject to removal. Here are the facts. The terrorist who gunned down American soldiers blocks away from the White House in an ambush was an Afghan national who was flown into our country by Joe Biden's administration in September 2021 in the chaotic wake of their botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of our great country. Joe Biden's historic failure in Afghanistan continues to haunt this country and our men and women in uniform.
I'll cross to Kristen in the US in just a moment, where the immigration crackdown continues after authorities revealed the Afghan suspect in the National Guard shooting in Washington, D.C. was radicalized in the US. Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem isn't taking any chances. Here she is speaking with the NBC.
The president is absolutely determined to stop all processes at this point in time from third world countries until we can have a thorough opportunity to go through these individuals, know that they're here for the right intentions, and that they even should be in our country to begin with. He's putting Americans first, their safety first.
Hell of a crackdown going on. Donald Trump, we know, has already been tough on border control and illegal immigration. But as our US contributor Kristen Tate explains, he's getting even tougher.
Yeah, this latest round of toughness comes after this Afghan national who came to the United States, by the way, amid Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, opened fire on 2 National Guard troops. One of those individuals died. The other is in critical condition in the hospital. Just before we went to air, I was on Twitter and saw Kristi Noem put out another statement. She is saying that she just met with President Trump and she's recommending a full travel ban on every nation that is, quote, flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. So this is going to be potentially a very wide-ranging ban on travel from countries that have not been specified yet, I suppose. But I have to tell you, Chris, this is supported by the vast majority of the MAGA voter base. Something needs to change, and God bless Donald Trump for stepping up and saying, hey, you know what, there are a lot of great immigrants on an individual level, but this country just cannot have wide open borders, and we're going to fix that.
In Trump term 1, way back then, what was called a Muslim ban, migration ban, was really a ban on countries, immigrants from countries where there was a lot of trouble with Islamist extremist terrorism. This latest ban, taking it to a travel ban rather than just a migration ban, it's going to be framed in the same way, isn't it? Because it's going to be largely countries where Islamist extremism is a problem.
Yes, of course. And I do think, however, that the kind of panic that the media will be able to create because of this will be much less significant than when they did it during the first Trump administration.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the focus on the president, the Trump hysteria, the Trump derangement syndrome. It seems to be still pretty strong at the New York Times because they've come out with a piece attacking him really over a lower performance because of his age, of all things. They're saying that compared to his first term, Donald Trump is starting his day later and finishing at the same time. They seem to suggest he's a bit tired and old, but I would have thought, observing him from afar, it doesn't seem to be the case.
course. And these are the same liars who told us for 4 straight years that Biden had never been sharper and he was really on it and he was just, so sharp and we all should stop talking about any concerns about his health. How dare you talk about that? Meanwhile, the whole country is sitting there watching an actual vegetable be wheeled on the stage, and we have no idea who's making decisions and actually running the United States of America. It's those same people who wagged their fingers at us for asking questions. Now, talking about concerns about President Trump, who we are all watching being very energetic. He's very accessible to the press. He's constantly out there. He's involved personally in almost every major issue we're talking about as a nation. It's just laughable, Chris.
It is extraordinary to watch. Let's have a look at some pictures here of Joe Biden stumbling up the stairs. These are the sorts of pictures we've seen many times before. And of course, when this occurred during his term as president, a lot of the media were simply defending him. Have a look at this piece here from the New York Times, where they tell us that he's 100% fine. He's doing 100% while he's boarding Air Force One. That's important context, because the reporter who wrote that story is the same reporter for the New York Times who's been saying that Donald Trump is slowing down. And so the White House press sec, Caroline Levitt, had a bit of fun with that. Have a look.
It's deeply unfortunate that this story was written by the same outlet and the same reporter who wrote this. Biden is doing 100% fine after tripping while boarding Air Force One. Oh, same outlet, same reporter who wrote that President Trump is not fit for the job. Are you kidding me? You all see him almost every single day. He is the most accessible president in history.
The hypocrisy is just astounding. Now, I'm all for scrutiny on a president, and let's question whether or not they're up to the job. But the contrast here by the same leftist media is just laughable.
It's great, though, because these people have no relevance anymore. No one cares about what these people at the New York Times think or say anymore. Nobody under the age of 70 reads the New York Times at this point. And these little journalists are just stomping their feet and screaming into the ether because they're so mad that they are just irrelevant now. But the rest of us are just laughing at them and their blatant hypocrisy.
Just before we let you go, a little sidelight, Christmas decorations being shown off at the White House, and they give us an insight of this picture. There's a painting there of Donald Trump after he was hit by that bullet in Pennsylvania. We've all seen the photos, an actual portrait showing that scene, Kristen.
Yeah, unbelievable. Just the whole, scene that she created in the White House for Christmas is just so patriotic, including that portrait. It's poised. Everything about it is perfect. There were even some little needle points in the background of George Washington, and then there was one of Trump. It was just beautiful, and it made me very proud to be an American. And, it was like, if that decor display was a Chanel suit, Jill Biden's display, her Christmas display last year was like something off the clearance rack from Party City or something. I think we talked about it last
year. Like a commercial for fucking
band of
TJ Maxx
clowns doing a big dance number in the White House. It looked like
it looks like a TJ Maxx
the
commercial.
Game Candyland. It was so embarrassing, but this is beautiful.
The lefties don't really like Christmas, Kristen, that's for sure.
No, they don't.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch up with you again next week.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, let's keep it moving.
It's a story that has gone viral and delighted some of us here at WTVR CBS 6 to no end. To hear them going on about it, you'd understand. A raccoon found passed out drunk in an Ashland ABC store Saturday morning. Now the Hanover Animal Control Officer called to the scene of the crime is speaking with us.
In what was certainly a unique call, Officer Samantha Martin arrived to find the 14 broken bottles of liquor all over the floor and the drunken culprit sleeping off his fun. Martin tells us the masked bandit somehow managed to get into the building's attic and fell through the ceiling tiles into the bathroom of the store.
That's when he took out the cameras, the security cameras. So we don't have a whole lot of footage of him running around the back room there, but he managed to knock down all the bottles, drink some of the beverages, and then stumbled into the bathroom where he ultimately locked himself in there and passed out next to the toilet.
Passed
my
out
God.
right there in between the toilet and the trash can. Martin says she picked up the raccoon, now being dubbed Al for alcohol, and took him back to the county shelter to sober up, where he slept it off and was freed. And now, in an effort to raise money for a new Hanover County animal shelter, they have launched a T-shirt design to memorialize
That's so
the
cute.
hilarious situation. And of course, Jack has already purchased one.
Yes, and as Lane always says, he hopes that animal gets the help it needs.
Yes.
Very
All
soon.
about
Definitely needs to go to an AA meeting too.
6 hours sleep off.
Yeah, let's get back to let's get back to more news. Let's check out this one here.
And I'm sure they're very nervous right now too. Vanessa, Craig, good morning to you both. Now, more than a dozen states, including New York, just won a short-term court order back in September blocking the government from collecting SNAP recipients' personal data. But the USDA, which manages the agency, they are asking for more here. The head of that agency just yesterday making headlines with this new notice.
So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer.
And a fired up New York Governor Kathy Hochul responding on X saying, genuine question. Why is the Trump administration so hell-bent on people going hungry? In New York State alone, nearly 3 million people rely on SNAP food assistance at a cost of more than $7 billion each year. And state data finds most recipients are children, elderly, or disabled. The USDA saying 28 states and Guam have followed its request for SNAP recipients' personal data, including names and immigration.
Yeah, I don't mind to get my
The
information.
agency says that compliance helped to uncover some 186,000 deceased people receiving payouts and roughly 500,000 more receiving benefits more than once. Now, this new SNAP controversy coming less than 1 month since the nation's longest ever government shutdown. SNAP benefits a key point over that 43-day-long impasse, which led to partial or delayed benefits to millions ahead of Thanksgiving. New York and other states suing the administration to continue SNAP benefits while also tapping into their own state funds to keep food on tables for those in need here. Now, the average SNAP recipient only receives about $190 each month for assistance, just about $6 a day. But the USDA standing firm here saying it wants a response from New York and all other states not complying by Monday, December 8th. We are live in Lower Manhattan. Justin Finch, Pix 11 News. Craig Vanessa back inside to you.
Yeah, they gotta hurry up and get that going then. You got a whole week to get that shit, release those information, and you'll have no problems.
Up for you right now at 5 o'clock, a major warning from police that could really impact anyone tonight. Good evening and thanks for joining us at 5. I'm Mark Sidney.
And hi, everyone. I'm Erin Connolly. Scammers are calling people, claiming they're police officers, demanding personal information and even money.
Your reporter Dylan Fearon is live now in Simsbury with more on how these scammers are really getting very, very good. Right, Dylan?
Mark, Aaron, absolutely. It's happening in Simsbury. It's happening in East Haven right now, but it can happen anywhere in Connecticut.
It shit ain't gonna happen to me because I don't got a fucking Connecticut number.
So good that when they call your cell phone, your local police department's phone number pops up.
What?
Susan Arsenal from Simsbury has received scam calls before, but she always hangs up immediately.
I didn't order anything. What they're talking about, I don't know anything what they're talking about, so why continue the conversation?
This specific scam call isn't as obvious as you think. Scammers are looking for your information and cash, pretending to be police. In one case, police say a scammer claimed to be an East Haven officer trying to get someone's banking information. Another resident reported the same thing. The caller was allegedly the police chief. In Simsbury, scammers have been claiming there are outstanding arrest warrants or ongoing investigations demanding payment to resolve the issue. Graham White isn't falling for it.
They're always pretending to be someone, and there's some critical information or some issue that you need to attend to immediately, but it's always just nonsense.
But the scammers have success by number spoofing. They're deliberately disguising their identity, changing the number appearing on your phone, making it look like the call is coming from police. It increases the chances you'll pick up and gain trust with the caller, who will claim it's urgent you send the information.
That's one of the red flags is that,
The fucking
this
police
is,
gonna be calling
something
me.
You've got to really
Fuck outta
attend
here.
to right away, or you're going to be in trouble, or you're going to lose money, or it's going to be some consequence of some kind.
Police say if it feels like a scam, hang up. Don't give them any personal information or send them money. Call police on your own to verify the request. And if it's a scam, report it.
They just have to be vigilant about what's going on around them.
They hit probably like 1 out of 1,000 people that they contact, they get something from, or maybe less than that. But that can be enough.
When it's
You
enough.
spend your entire day just calling people and, get some sort of return on it.
Now, another tip, Mark and Aaron, if anyone feels you're in the middle of one of these scam calls, you can ask the alleged police officer for their name and badge number. Hang up, call your local police department, and have them verify that. I'm your reporter live in Simsbury tonight. Dylan Fear, Channel 3, Eyewitness News.
All right, a lot of good information, Dylan. Thank
I don't pick up those motherfucking calls. All right, let's get back to another episode of Tyson DeLacruz.
Former news anchor Stephanie Hockridge has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for federal conspiracy. She co-founded a company alongside her husband that helped people get PPP loans during the COVID pandemic.
America, we just witnessed the dramatic fall of a former ABC news anchor who went from reporting the news to making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Stephanie Hockridge, who once delivered trusted news to Arizona families, was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for orchestrating a $63 million C-19 relief fraud scheme through her company Blue Acorn. But here's what's absolutely disgusting. While small businesses were desperately struggling to survive during the pandemic, this former journalist was exploiting the crisis to steal tax money meant to save American jobs. The Justice Department just revealed she charged borrowers illegal kickbacks and fabricated documents to help herself and others get loans they weren't eligible for.
News anchor is facing federal charges in connection with an alleged scheme to fraudulently obtain COVID-19 relief money.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This case perfectly illustrates how some people saw the pandemic as an opportunity to get rich off of taxpayer-funded programs designed to help struggling Americans. Let me take you guys through the timeline of how a respected news anchor became one of the biggest C-19 fraud criminals in American history. Stephanie Hockridge spent years as a trusted face on ABC 15 in Phoenix, delivering news to Arizona families who relied on her for accurate information.
We are getting a look at a newly unsealed indictment in Texas charging two people who ran a Scottsdale startup in a scheme to defraud taxpayers through the Paycheck Protection Program during the pandemic.
But in April 2020, as the pandemic was devastating small businesses across America, Hockridge and her husband, Nathan Reese, saw an opportunity. They founded Blue Acorn in Scottsdale, supposedly to help small businesses and independent contractors apply for Paycheck Protection Program loans, PPP loans.
As the pandemic swept through the country in 2020, Blue Acorn sprouted up and slid into social media feeds, promising to help small businesses access federal COVID relief loans.
According to prosecutors, Blue Acorn facilitated $12 billion in PPP loans. The company's founders reportedly walked away with $300 million. Think about that. While American small businesses were closing their doors forever, these two were making hundreds of millions of dollars by exploiting the very programs designed to save those businesses. Now, before we dive into exactly how this fraud scheme operated, I need to talk to you about something that's going to shock you. While we're watching these criminals exploit C-19 relief funds, there's another way fraudsters are targeting Americans that most people don't even know about, and it's putting your financial security at risk every single day. Look at this 11-page report showing exactly what data brokers know about me. They have my business information, my financial details, my tax records, my banking relationships, everything a criminal would need to apply for fraudulent loans in my name or steal my business identity. And here's the most terrifying part. They're selling this information to anybody willing to pay for it, including the same type of fraudsters exploiting PPP programs. When I Google my own name, look at all these data broker sites claiming to sell my personal and business information. It makes me absolutely furious that these companies are making billions of dollars selling our most sensitive data without our consent, and they make zero effort to stop scammers and fraudsters from buying it and commit identity theft and loan fraud. Think about it. While Stephanie Hockridge was fabricating documents to get fraudulent PPP loans, criminals are using your real information sold by data brokers to apply for loans, credit cards, and government benefits in our names. How does this make you feel? Your private information is being sold to the highest bidder. That is why I'm partnered with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura protects your privacy by identifying data brokers selling your information and automatically removing them from these sites. But unlike other services that offer this, Aura gives you way more protection for the same price. You get alerts if your personal information is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 monitoring to help you keep your identity secure, a secure VPN, antivirus, password management, and much, much more. Plus, they have US-based support available around the clock. And if anything does happen, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection with US fraud experts ready to help 24/7. You can try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/Tyson DeLacruz. That is definitely enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal information off these data broker sites without you even lifting a finger. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable to data brokers and financial fraudsters, and you shouldn't either. Here's how their sophisticated fraud operation worked. According to the Justice Department, Hockridge and her co-conspirators offered personalized services called VIPPP to help potential borrowers complete PPP loan application. But obviously, this wasn't legitimate assistance. This was organized fraud.
The indictment also accuses the couple of falsifying documents about finances for their own small businesses to get PPP loans for themselves. According to prosecutors, Hockridge also took kickbacks through something called the VIPPP program.
They recruited referral agents to coach borrowers on how to submit false PPP loan applications to get larger loans for certain applications. They fabricated documents, including payroll records, tax documentations, and bank statements. Then they charged borrowers kickbacks based on the percentage of funds that they received. I actually remember being reached out by Blue Acorn for a few of my businesses during the pandemic time. They wanted upfront fees and personal information immediately. When I saw these type of companies popping up everywhere, I never really was interested. One, because I didn't need it. And second, it just seemed too scammy for me. My instincts were absolutely right here.
Authorities say that Hockridge and her husband, Nathan Reese, submitted fraudulent PPP loan applications and charged borrowers illegal kickbacks. The couple is facing charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 4 counts of wire fraud.
The fact that they were charging illegal kickbacks should have been a massive red flag for anyone involved. Legitimate PPP assistance was supposed to be free or involve standard processing fees, not a percentage-based kickback based on incentive fraud. The legal proceedings against Hockridge have been playing out for over a year. Back in June, after a 5-day trial in Texas, she was found guilty of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, but not guilty on the individual wire fraud charges. The defense tried to argue that Hockridge acted in good faith and was taking steps to prevent fraud. But the jury saw through that defense when it came down to the conspiracy charges. They recognized that this was an organized criminal enterprise, not some well-intended business that got out of hand. Federal prosecutors asked for 16 to 19 years in prison, just shy of the 20-year maximum. They called her crime pervasive fraud and said that she refused to accept responsibility. Instead, continued to blame everybody but herself about her conduct. Last Friday in Fort Worth, Texas, Stephanie Hockridge learned her absolute faith. The judge sentenced her to 10 years in federal prison and ordered $64 million in restitutions to be paid to the Small Business Administration.
Stephanie Hockridge was emotional, her voice shaking as she told the court she was truly sorry. But at the same time, she did not take full responsibility for the PPP loan fraud conspiracy that she was convicted of. Inside the Fort Worth federal courtroom, The judge characterized Stephanie Hockridge as a leader in the conspiracy, saying that she capitalized on the generosity of the government and committed a serious crime in the midst of a national pandemic.
Despite the size of the fraud, the judge sentenced her for less time than the prosecutor's request. He talked about her character and viewed this as a single misstep in her life. But $64 million in stolen taxpayer money during a national emergency isn't quote unquote a misstep. It's organized criminal activity. Hockridge's husband, Nathan Reese, who co-founded Blue Acorn with her, pleaded guilty on the same conspiracy charges in August and is scheduled for sentencing next month.
crazy.
He also faces a maximum of 20 years in prison.
The couple has a 1-year-old baby.
I'm just trying to be a great father and trying to support my wife the best I can.
Unfortunately, this couple has a 1-year-old baby, which adds another tragic dimension to this particular case. Hockridge's attorney asked the judge to let her remain out of custody on ankle monitoring until they can determine whether to stagger prison sentences so at least one parent is available to care for their child. This is what makes this case so heartbreaking. It's not just criminals who suffer consequences. It's innocent children who had no choice in their parents' criminal decisions. The baby's going to grow up with both parents potentially in federal prison because their greed during a national crisis. The Hockridge case is just one example of how the PPP fraud was systematically exploited by criminals who saw the pandemic as a get-rich-quick opportunity. The Justice Department's fraud section has prosecuted, get this, over 200 defendants in more than 130 criminal cases related to PPP fraud.
This is a case of greed, pure and simple. There's no question that they live lavishly on the proceeds.
Jason Lamb's a Phoenix attorney who has defended white-collar criminals in federal court. He has not worked on the Blue Acorn case, but he says he's familiar with the prosecution of Hockridge, who is a former ABC 15 news anchor, and her husband.
It's going to be a very lean and mean trial.
While legitimate small businesses were struggling to navigate the complex PPP application process and desperately needed help, companies like Blue Acorn were exploiting the desperation to steal taxpayer money. The fact that they seized over $78 million in cash proceeds and numerous real estate properties and luxury items shows the scale of wealth these fraudsters accumulated while American businesses were failing. Hockridge's attorneys planned to file an immediate appeal, arguing that the issues went wrong during the government investigation and trial. They're hoping the appeal in court will overturn her conviction or reduce her potential sentence.
And the judge recognized that she should at least given enough time to file those motions.
They're never held accountable
about remanding her to custody.
If neither the appeal nor the request for staggering sentences work, Hockridge will have to report to federal prison by December 30th of this year. That means she'll be spending New Year's Eve in a federal penitentiary, a far cry from a news anchor desk. The judge did give her some time to file appeal motions before making a decision about remaining her in custody, which obviously shows some consideration to her family situation. But the reality is she's facing a decade in federal prison for exploiting a national emergency. America, the Stephanie Hockridge case represents everything wrong with how some people responded to the C-19 pandemic. Instead of helping struggling businesses navigate legitimate relief programs, they saw it as an opportunity to get rich by exploiting taxpayer-funded assistance meant to save American jobs. The transformation from trusted news anchor to convicted federal criminal is a cautionary tale about how greed can corrupt anybody, regardless of their profession, background, or public reputation. Arizona families trusted her to deliver accurate news, but she betrayed that trust by becoming the news herself. The $64 million in restitution she owes will likely never be fully recovered, which means taxpayers will bear the cost of her criminal enterprise. Every dollar she stole was a dollar that couldn't help a legitimate small business survive the pandemic. Her husband, Nathan Reese, faces sentencing next month and could receive an even harsher sentence since he pleaded guilty and might be expected to show more remorse. Their 1-year-old child will grow up with both parents potentially in federal prison. The Justice Department's aggressive prosecution of PPP fraud cases sends a clear message that exploiting national emergencies for personal gain will result in serious federal consequences. But the damage is already done. Billions in taxpayer money was stolen while legitimate businesses struggled and failed. My instinct about Blue Acorn being scammy were absolutely correct. When companies are demanding up upfront fees and personal information immediately during a crisis, that is a usual red flag for fraud. Legitimate assistance doesn't require kickbacks or suspicious urgency. This case should remind us all to be skeptical of companies that pop up during emergencies, promising easy money or quick solutions. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Okay, let's keep it moving. Keep it moving, Tyson. That was a good one.
Notified that immigration enforcement activities are going to happen, and we aren't involved in the operations. We aren't coordinating with ICE or Border Patrol.
America, the protest mob is back at it again, and this time they're targeting Home Depot because illegal day laborers refuse to switch up where they're trying to get work. We've got Mexican flags, Palestinian flags, and a bunch of confused protesters who think that they're buying ice scrapers when they're actually purchasing putty knives. But here's what's absolutely ridiculous. These people think Home Depot is somehow in charge of ICE operations and responsible for illegal immigrants hanging out in their parking lots. This is peak performative action where people convince themselves they're making a change by harassing a business that has zero control over federal immigration enforcement.
We've seen countless immigration raids at Southern California Home Depots, and immigrant groups are accusing the company of being complicit in the operation.
What is up,
gonna
guys?
be there.
Tyson DeLacruz
Go.
here. Thank you so much for rocking with me.
Are you
This
kidding me?
entire circus is a complete waste of time by people who clearly don't understand how federal law enforcement works or what Home Depot does as an actual business. Let me break down this absurd scene where protesters are showing up waving Mexican flags and Palestine flags to protest at a home improvement store. Think about the logic here. You're protesting American immigration enforcement by waving foreign flags at an American business that sells tools and lumber.
On this Black Friday, members from various immigrants' rights groups
We
carried
shouldn't even
signs
be
that
there.
expressed
We're there by
outrage in front of the Home
materials.
Depot in Torrance. They were
Make no
demonstrating on
sense.
behalf of the day laborers and against ICE raids.
The symbolism here is perfect. Foreign flags being waved to protest enforcement of American immigration law. These protesters are literally announcing their allegiance to other countries while demanding that American businesses obstruct American law enforcement. You cannot make
That's
this stuff
crazy.
up.
Definitely. Yeah, we wanna scrape ice from our communities. And it's kind of symbolic, right? To use an ice scraper, buy it, and try to collapse their system for a moment or for some time. With the group of people that are witnessing and are willing to stand up for the human rights of day laborers.
Listen to this protester trying to explain their brilliant, amazing strategy, you guys. We want to scrape ice from our communities. They think they're being clever with wordplay, but they're actually just disrupting a business that has nothing to do with immigration enforcement. It's like protesting the DMV by harassing McDonald's.
We could not reach Home Depot for comment tonight, but its communication team has repeatedly told the media they do not cooperate with ICE agents and are not notified of raids.
Now let's talk about Kathleen, who seemed a little out of breath during her interview, but was determined to make her moral stand known to the world. She's been shopping at Home Depot for 4 decades, but apparently just discovered that illegal immigrants sometimes gather in the parking lots.
I've shopped at Home Depot for 4 decades. I've spent a lot of money at Home Depot, but not now. Not when Home Depot is not standing up for the human beings that keep our country alive and running.
Here is my counter
What are you talking
argument
about?
to Kathleen's emotional
Stand up
plea.
for the people
Home
that are
Depot is a
outside begging
business
for
that
work?
sells home improvement
Are you kidding
supplies,
me?
not an immigration
Get the fuck outta
enforcement
here.
agency. They don't control who hangs
Been
out in
there
their
40
parking
whatever
lots any more
years.
than McDonald's
Stick it up your
controls
ass.
who hangs out in their parking lot. If you want to protest immigration enforcement, go protest at the ICE headquarters, not in the lumber aisle.
This was a more traditional protest in August after ICE agents flooded the Monrovia Home Depot parking lot, handcuffing workers waiting for jobs. One laborer who ran from the raid was struck and killed by an SUV, though DHS told us agents were not pursuing him.
The fact that Kathleen is willing to end her 40-year customer relationship over something Home Depot doesn't control shows how effective the activist misinformation can be. She's been successfully manipulated into believing that retail stores are responsible for federal law enforcement operations. And here's where this protest gets even more ridiculous. These brilliant activists think they're buying ice scrapers when they're actually purchasing putty knives. Apparently, these folks aren't smart enough to know the difference between tools designed to remove ice and tools designed scraping paint and putting putty on the walls.
What are you buying? An ice scraper. Nice. What are you guys buying?
We are buying ice scrapers.
Right.
The symbolism here, guys, is absolutely perfect. They can't even identify the tools that they're buying, but they think that they can understand complex federal immigration law and corporate responsibility. If you can't tell a putty knife from an ice scraper, maybe you shouldn't be lecturing businesses about law enforcement policy. This, my friends, is the level of intelligence we're dealing with. People who think disrupting customer service lines with wrong tools is somehow going to change federal immigration policy. It's performative activism at its most absurd. This entire spectacle is performative bullcrap where people convince themselves they're trying to make a meaningful change by harassing minimum wage Home Depot employees. They're not affecting the bottom line. They're not changing immigration policy, and they're not helping anyone. But apparently it makes them feel good about themselves.
We want for Home Depot to condemn these ice raids on their property. We know they can do that. They should speak out, reject the use of its stores and their sites for fear and violence.
Think about what they're actually demanding here. They want Home Depot to condemn ice raids and reject the use of its stores and their sites of fear and violence. They're asking a retail business to take political positions against federal law enforcement. Here is an amazing news flash for you guys. That is not how businesses work, and it's not how federal law works.
And videos of this weekend's unusual, unique protest have gone viral.
The fact that their videos went viral just encourages more of this nonsense. They think viral videos equal meaningful change, when all they accomplish is disrupting a business and confuse customers who just wanted to buy home improvement supplies. Let me be clear about what Home Depot actually does and doesn't control. They sell tools, lumber, and home improvement supplies. They don't control federal immigration enforcement. They don't manage who gathers in public parking areas, and they're not responsible for ICE operations that happen near their stores. Home Depot has repeatedly stated they don't cooperate with ICE agents and are not notified of raids beforehand. But these protesters refuse to accept that explanation because it doesn't fit their narrative that evil corporations are conspiring with federal agents to hunt down immigrants. The company's position is completely reasonable. They're required to follow federal and local laws. They can't obstruct law enforcement operations, and they have no control who chooses to gather in publicly accessible parking areas.
The group says it could do it again as it looks for creative, impactful ways to protest.
The protesters' refusal to accept Home Depot's explanation shows this was never really about the company's policy. It was about opposing immigration enforcement in general. They're using Home Depot as a convenient target because it's easier to harass a business than change federal law. Here's what these protesters refuse to acknowledge. Illegal day laborers choose to gather at Home Depot locations because it's convenient for them, not because Home Depot invites them or facilitates their presence.
Buy your Christmas tree elsewhere and boycott Home Depot. We want them to denounce the raids. We want them to stop allowing their parking lots to be used as hunting grounds. We want them to provide safe spaces for day laborers and offer some recompense to the over 500 families whose lives have been shattered.
These are public parking areas where people can legally stand, and Home Depot has no authority to remove people who aren't trespassing. If the day laborers want to avoid ICE operations, they could easily switch locations. They could gather at different businesses, public parks, or maybe even other areas. But they choose Home Depot because contractors and homeowners know to look for workers there. It's a market-driven decision, not a corporate conspiracy. The protesters are essentially demanding Home Depot become a sanctuary business that actively obstructs federal law enforcement to protect people who are working illegally. That is not a responsible expectation for a business, and it is not legally required. When ICE conducts operations near Home Depot stores, they're targeting people who are violating violating federal immigration law, not Home Depot customers or employees. The company is collateral to these operations, not a participant.
It gives ICE privilege so they can use their facilities to take these people without due process.
Let's be honest about the actual impact of this boycott. It's going to have zero, and I mean zero, meaningful impact on Home Depot's bottom line. The people protesting with Mexican flags and Palestine flags probably weren't major Home Depot customers anyway. The company's core customer base understands that businesses can't control federal law enforcement. Kathleen might end her 40-year shopping relationship, but for every activist who stops shopping at Home Depot, there are probably 10 customers who support the company's responsible position of following federal law without taking a political stance. The ice scraper putty knife stunt might create some temporary inconvenience for employees and customers, but it's not going to change corporate policy or federal immigration law. It's just harassment disguised as activism. The viral videos might make protesters feel important for a day or two, but viral content doesn't equal policy change. All they accomplished is demonstrating their own confusion about how business, law enforcement, and immigration policy actually work. America, this Home Depot protest perfectly captures everything wrong with modern activism. People who don't understand the issues attacking businesses that have no control over the problems they're protesting. You've got Mexican flags and Palestine flags being waved at a lumber store because illegal workers choose to gather in the parking lot. Kathleen's breathless moral crusade against a business that sells tools and lumber shows how activists misinformation can turn responsible people into confused protesters. The putty knife ice scraper confusion is a perfect metaphor for the entire protest. People who can't identify basic tools think they understand complex immigration policy and corporate responsibility. If you don't know the difference between a putty knife and an ice scraper, maybe don't lecture businesses about federal law. This performative activism convinces participants they're making meaningful change when all they're doing is harassing employees and disrupting customers who just want to buy home improvement supplies. Viral videos don't equal policy victories. Home Depot is not in charge of ICE operations, federal immigration enforcement, or who chooses to gather in public accessible parking areas. They're a retail business that sells tools, lumber, dishwashers, washing machines, not an immigration enforcement agency or a social service organization. The protesters demands that Home Depot condemn ICE raids and become a sanctuary business shows they fundamentally misunderstood how businesses operate and what legal obligations companies actually have. This boycott will have zero meaningful impact on Home Depot's bottom line because their core customers understand the difference between business following federal law and businesses participating in law enforcement operation. If these activists want to change immigration policy, they should protest Congress, ICE headquarters, and federal courthouses, not the lumber aisle at Home Depot. But that would actually require work instead of performative theater. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
I just upload as a joke, man. I worked for Home Depot for I think it was like 3 years. I worked for them, and I got as high as a front end manager because I used to work as when I first started. I started as a cashier. Then I went to the returns, and then I worked in the commercial side, and then they put me head cashier, and yeah, you have to get certified for each one of those areas. So I still have my little patches somewhere stored in one of my bins. I gotta come reminisce and show you guys all my accolades from Home Depot. And I think these people are just stupid because a lot of these foreigners that come to work at Home Depot, I remember they used to stand right outside and begging for help, like they're begging for work, and they're like, "Oh, I can help you, my friend. I don't have too much money. I can do the job." And then you see them all the time that they're like, it was like a nuisance. And now they want Home Depot to like tell ICE, don't come to our property and take our immigrants. This is a safe area for immigrants. Like, are you kidding me? Get the fuck out of here. All right, let's keep it moving with another episode of Tyson DeLacruz. I told you we got a lot to watch from Tyson, so let's get to it.
America, we just witnessed absolute chaos in New York City when anti-ICE protesters physically blocked federal vehicles from leaving a government building in Lower Manhattan, leading to multiple arrests and pepper spray deployment. 18 people were arrested for obstructing government administration after they formed human chains and threw barriers at NYPD officers trying to maintain order. But here's what makes this even more disturbing. This happened less than a month after ICE cleared out Canal Street of illegal migrant vendors. And now those same vendors are back in even bigger numbers, while Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani promises to make New York the strongest sanctuary city in the country.
Arrests were also caught on camera.
Ashamed of yourselves!
Others were pepper sprayed.
I just have a really bad sting in the eyes. I got hit in the face a little bit. I was bleeding from my mouth. But
what is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz
he
here.
doesn't
Thank
sound
you
like
so
he's from
much
here.
for rocking with
Check
me.
his papers.
This case perfectly shows how New York sanctuary city policies create a cycle where federal agents clear out illegal activity, protesters obstruct enforcement, and the criminal networks immediately return stronger than before. Let me break down exactly what happened at the U.S. General Services Administration building in Lower Manhattan. Federal agents from ICE, FBI, and other agencies were conducting operations when over 150 protesters descended on the scene and began physically obstructing law enforcement.
Several people were taken into custody in Lower Manhattan after what police sources call an unscheduled anti-ICE demonstration. Those sources tell CBS News New York protesters gathered at a parking garage near Center and Howard Streets around noon. We're told they were trying to stop ICE agents from leaving the garage to conduct a vendor raid on nearby Canal Street.
Think about that. These activists had advanced intelligence about federal operations and organized a coordinated response to physically obstruct law enforcement.
You can see NYPD officers are still here even several hours since the protest. Protesters were focusing on this building right here to my left. It belongs to the federal government, and they were trying to prevent federal agents from leaving this building, and that's why many of them got arrested.
These protests are getting wilder and wilder. The protesters weren't just holding signs, they were climbing garage windows, forming human chains, and actively trying to prevent federal vehicles from leaving the building. When you physically obstruct federal agents conducting lawful operations, you are no longer a peaceful protester. You, my friend, are committing a federal crime. What started as obstruction quickly escalated into violence when protesters began throwing planters and police barricades at NYPD officers. This wasn't peaceful resistance. This is organized violence against law enforcement trying to maintain public safety.
Two major cities in America, the two largest cities, two cities that rely heavily on immigrant populations, diverse immigrant populations, undocumented immigrant populations.
The fact that protesters had advanced knowledge of the operations and were able to mobilize over 150 people within hours shows this isn't some spontaneous community outrage. This is a coordinated effort by professional activists who don't have jobs to obstruct federal immigration enforcement.
We saw the moment when at least one person was taken into custody. Several arrests were also caught on camera.
They created a dangerous situation and then play victim when law enforcement uses crowd control measures to restore order. This confrontation becomes even more significant when you understand what's happening on Canal Street right now. Less than a month ago, ICE conducted a major raid that completely cleared out the area of illegal migrant vendors. But according to Savannah Hernandez's latest report, these vendors are now back in even bigger numbers.
This is Savannah Hernandez back out on Canal Street 1 month after the ICE raid that saw this street completely cleared out. Now, this is actually pretty cleaned up because NYPD just walked through here. This entire corner was filled with, once again, those illegal migrant street vendors. And they're back completely disregarding the law once again.
Savannah's reporting shows that despite the ICE raids that saw 9 illegal immigrants arrested, the migrants are still crowding the sidewalks and openly selling counterfeit goods. The NYPD has been walking around the area all day, but the vendors just move from street corner to another corner to another corner without any arrests being made. The vendors know that they can get away with continuing to sell their knockoff goods because NYPD isn't making arrests and the city government refuses to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. This creates a cycle where ICE clears out an area, protesters obstruct future operations, and the illegal activity immediately returns. What we're seeing, my friends, in New York is a direct conflict between federal immigration enforcement and local sanctuary city policies. While border czar Tom Homan promises an uptick on ICE raids across New York City, the incoming Mamdani administration is promising the exact opposite. Savannah perfectly captured this conflict on camera. Tom Homan promises a surge in ICE raids due to New York City's sanctuary city status, while Mamdani is planning to make New York the strongest, and I mean strongest, sanctuary city in America.
Thank you again, Eamon, for having me here. It's a pleasure, and I think what we're seeing right now is authoritarianism. And what our city and every city needs is a leader who will look it in the eyes and not see a reflection of themselves.
Listen to Zoran Mamdani's rhetoric. He calls immigration enforcement authoritarianism and frames ICE operations as attacks on the very essence of our cities. This is the kind of inflammatory language that encourages protesters to physically obstruct federal agents. Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani has made it clear that he plans to escalate New York's resistance to federal immigration enforcement. He pledged $165 million to legal funds for illegal immigrants and states his administration will not work with federal officers to enforce immigration law.
Because this isn't just an attack on immigrants who are being picked up by masked men in unmarked cars. This is an attack on the very essence of our cities and our states and our country.
It's the federal government.
We are seeing too many so-called leaders across this
too
country
many illegals
who
here,
are sitting
buddy.
idly by as this takes place. When we know that Donald Trump never rewards concessions,
How we
he can
get
only be
this
defeated if
guy
you're willing
in
to fight.
government?
Mamdani positions
How the
himself
hell
as
does this guy
somebody
get
who will
government?
fight federal immigration enforcement rather
Like,
than comply with federal law. He's essentially
crazy,
promising
man.
to turn New York City government into an active resistance movement against ICE operations. Instead of using city resources to help legal residents, he's dedicating massive funding to protect people who violated federal immigration law. What happened at the federal building was not spontaneous. It is a result of organized protesting networks that have been training people to obstruct ICE operations. These groups hand out whistles and conduct workshops teaching illegal immigrants how to hide from federal agents.
We're here to stand up for our communities and we're here to stand up for our neighbors. We do not agree with ripping families apart, with ICE ripping families apart. We'll do anything we can to stop it, and that includes putting our bodies on the line.
These protesters groups organize every weekend, handing out whistles and teaching workshops on how to evade federal law enforcement. This is not civil disobedience. This is organized obstruction of federal agents trying to enforce immigration law.
New Yorkers have been creating channels of communication so that if and when there are ICE raids, small or large, people in the community can come out and force to stand up against ICE.
During last month's Canal Street raid, 5 protesters were arrested for assaulting and obstructing federal immigration agents. The people they were defending included 9 illegal immigrants tied to domestic violence, drug trafficking, assault, forgery, and robbery. These activists are literally protecting criminals from law enforcement. What we're seeing in New York is a predictable cycle. ICE conducts raids, protesters obstruct future operations, illegal activity returns stronger than before, and the cycle repeats and repeats. This is exactly what sanctuary city policies create, a revolving door where criminal networks know they can operate with impunity. On the other hand, many New Yorkers were happy when Canal Street was finally walkable after the ICE raids, but other residents predicted it would just return to business as usual. And unfortunately, they were absolutely right. The illegal vendors are back in bigger numbers because they know the city won't cooperate with federal enforcement. The NYPD officers who walk through and essentially shake hands with vendors while watching them move across the street shows how completely the city has abandoned law enforcement. When local police can't or won't enforce basic laws, federal agents are forced to conduct operations without local support. America, what's happening in New York perfectly illustrates how sanctuary city policies create chaos for law-abiding citizens while protecting criminal networks. When protesters can physically obstruct federal agents with advanced intelligence about operations, when illegal vendors return in bigger numbers after raids, when mayors pledge millions to obstruct immigration enforcement, you no longer have a functioning city government. 18 arrests at the federal building shows what happens when activist networks think they can physically block law enforcement with impunity. These weren't peaceful protesters. These were people throwing barriers at police and climbing buildings to obstruct federal operation. The Canal Street return to chaos less than a month after ICE raids proves that sanctuary city policies create a revolving door for illegal activity. When vendors know they can operate with impunity because the city refuses to cooperate with federal enforcement. Zoran Mamdani promises to make New York the strongest sanctuary city in America, guarantees this cycle will continue and escalate. When mayors use taxpayer money to actively obstruct federal law enforcement, they're choosing criminals over citizens. The fact that protesters had advanced intelligence about ICE operations shows how deeply these networks have penetrated city government and law enforcement. When activists know about federal operations before they happen, someone is leaking information to help criminals evade justice. New York has become a sanctuary for criminals and a source of chaos for law-abiding citizens. Until the city starts cooperating with federal immigration enforcement instead of obstructing it, this cycle of lawlessness will continue and escalate. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for another great upload there. I mean, I don't know. I survived. I died, came back alive for this crap that I have to experience. It's like everything that I never wanted to go through, I'm going through. And it's like, okay, let's see how this goes, because everything seems like it's opposite, and I just see more chaos, like more wild things happening in New York City. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see over here. Let's check out the story. Let's go ahead and set this up.
Good evening. We begin tonight with that West Haven officer on administrative leave. Good evening. I'm Dennis House.
I'm Ann Nyberg. That officer is facing an assault charge for his use of force. News 8's Zuri Hoffman joins us live from West Haven. Zuri.
Well, guys, in a press conference today, the police chief says if it wasn't for another officer coming forward, bringing that misconduct to light, the entire situation would have gone unreported and just slipped under the radar.
Wow.
This is the West Haven officer now on administrative leave for using excessive force during a July arrest.
Yeah, he lives like
32-year-old Richard Nacarado on the force since 2021.
The officer that intervened, we give a lot of credit to that officer.
It was brought to light when another officer, also responding to the call, alerted their boss. Now, 5 months later, after convening a use of force panel, West Haven police holding a press conference with their findings.
The panel reviewed all video and concluded the force not to be in accordance with WHPD policies and procedures.
It all stems from a call to JR's Place Bar and Grill for an unwanted man at their business.
Okay.
Officer Nacarado responded with another cop. Both arrived, finding a man sitting on the sidewalk. They tried getting him to leave, but he refused, and that's when Nacarado places him under arrest. But the man jumps up and punches Officer Nacarado. The two begin fighting, And that's when police say Nacarado used excessive force. According to arrest warrants, distinct thuds can be heard, and the second officer touches the back of Nacarado's vest and repeats a sequence of words sounding like no, no, no to Nacarado. Once the scene was secured, a supervisor asked them what happened. Nacarado states, he was clawing my eyes, so I just put him on the ground and punching motions until he gave up. Medical records showed the man had a concussion and blunt trauma. State police launched their own investigation into the incident, finding that the man was not committing an illegal act when he was sitting on the sidewalk. They also found that Officer Nacarado punched the man in the head a total of 18 times while the man was on the ground and on his back. The findings going on to say Nacarado was mounted above him and seen pushing the man's head against the ground. He then threw another 15 punches while the man does not appear to be resisting.
The actions of one individual is not a reflection on our entire force that works hard every single day for the residents of the city of West Haven.
Nacarado is facing a felony of second-degree assault, out on $50,000 bond.
That's crazy.
Now, police tell us that paperwork has already been sent out for the officer's decertification that would bar him from working as a police officer, at least in this area. I asked the chief today if that officer will be fired. He says we have to wait for all of this to play out. Again, he's now on administrative leave. Reporting live here in West Haven, I'm Zori Hoffman, News 8.
I mean, the way I understood the story, this person was told to leave. He refused. Then somehow they got into a scuffle as he was trying to place him under arrest. The individual on the ground clawed at the officer's eyes, and that's what triggered the officer to bombard this person with punches to the head 18 times. The guy looks like he's jacked up. Hold on, we got a picture of him. Hold on. Let's get that picture up here.
Of him and seen.
Okay, shut up. Okay, here we go. This dude right here. Like, you can tell this dude, he is fit. I don't know, he got clawed in the eyes. That's what the story he's claiming. He got clawed in the eyes, and he just went off on the person and punched him 18 times in the head. I mean, holy shit, 18 times. I mean, damn. Damn, man. But he's out on bond. I think it's like, what, $50,000 out on bond. And it's a felony charge, so definitely gonna have to go to court for that. What triggered him? Like the claws to the eyes? I think it was the claws to the eyes. What triggered this motherfucker? It was like, you went for my eyes, bitch. Oh. Motherfucker. I gotta do this motherfucker every day and take my aggression out on you, bitch. Oh, motherfucker. Was it worth it? Fuck yeah. Poof, motherfucker. Oh, no. He's been on the job for like, what, 4 years? About 4 years. He's been on the force. So they're going to try to not have him be an officer up here. He could go to another state and become an officer. I mean, after a while, after things settle down, he could transfer. Like, he could go and apply at another, like, in another state, probably in another city, and they'll hire him. And they will hire him. That's the crazy shit, right? No accountability in America. America lost that a long time ago. They lost accountability. All right, so let's go ahead and watch another episode of Tyson DeLacruz.
Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Do you stand by that claim of calling to more party?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with America. What's happening in Minnesota has officially become a national security crisis. We just witnessed the 78th defendant charged in the largest C-19 fraud scheme in United States history, while Minneapolis Police Chief O'Hare was forced to publicly apologize for simply telling the truth about Somalia criminal activity in his own city. But here's what's absolutely terrifying. We now have Somalia police officers on camera declaring that they work for Somalians first, not Americans, all while hundreds of millions of tax dollars flowed to al-Shabaab terrorists overseas. This is exactly why President Trump suspended temporary protection status for Somalia nationals. Minnesota has become a hub for organized crime that's literally funding international terrorism.
That's crazy.
There is a lot of hate in this country for Muslims. There's a lot of hate in this country for Black people, especially Black women. And there is a lot of hate, severe hate for immigrants.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz here. Thank you so much for rocking.
We can play that violin. I need a violin, man.
Get caught up on everything that led to today's shocking revelations. We put together a complete playlist. You can either find it in the description down below or somewhere on the screen. Let me start with the most disturbing development. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hare was forced to publicly apologize for exposing the reality of Somalia criminal activity in his own town. Think about that for a moment. A police chief had to ask for forgiveness for doing his job and protecting public safety.
The Somali community here in Minneapolis has been welcoming and has shown love towards me, and I appreciate it. Over the last 3 years, we have been working together to try and address some of the real serious problems that we have in our community.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
We have to be honest at times with the problems that we're having in our community, and we need our community to help us fix those problems together because it's real and it's serious. At the same time, if people have taken anything that I have said out of context in a way that's caused harm, I apologize and I'm sorry for that because that's not my intention at all.
Sure. I'm the captain now.
This is absolutely insane. Here's a police chief who's been working with Somalia community 3 years to address serious crime problems, and he's forced to grovel and apologize for stating facts about crime statistics.
This next story should be a wake-up call to all Americans, however. Over the weekend, the president calling Minnesota a hub of fraudulent activity and ending protected status for Somalis living in Minnesota.
This is how it begins, America, when police chiefs can't even acknowledge criminal activity without being forced to apologize. You've lost control of your city. Other countries are watching this weakness in Minnesota leadership and thinking exactly what we're all thinking. This state has been completely compromised. And it gets so much worse. We now have video evidence of Somalia police officers in Minnesota openly declaring that they work for Somalians first, not Americans. This isn't law enforcement. This is foreign occupation of our police departments.
markaan haddaan askarnahay Soomaaliyeed ininka ayni shaqeynaa habeenii maalmo ininka ayni taaganahay fahanteen horta sida ogtihiinba wadankan anaga qaxootiyan imaanay askar Soomaaliya ma jirin marka hadda anaga markiina la haygeliyay waxay noqotay inaan dadkeena u shaqeyno.
Listen to what this officer is saying. As a Somalian police officer, we're working for you, Somalians. Day and night, we stand for you and serve for you. Now that we have been hired, it means we are working for our own people. This, my friends, is a police officer sworn to protect and serve all Americans. And he's openly declaring his primary loyalty to one ethnic group.
dadkii dhaqankii ma fahmaynaa luqadii ma fahmaynaa culture-kii ma fahmaynaa marka qofka kale mataqaanaa ajanabiga cabadaanka iyo anagoo kala duwannahay.
He goes on to say they're different from foreigners or white officers, and that every Somalian police officer, whether you're in the homeland or abroad, works for Somalians. This is ethnic nationalism being openly declared by sworn law enforcement officers. When police officers see themselves as representatives of foreign interests rather than American law enforcement, you no longer have a functioning police department. While police chiefs are apologizing and officers are declaring foreign loyalty, the criminal enterprise keeps expanding and going. Abid Rashad Bixidu became the 78th defendant charged in this massive fraud scheme, accused of stealing over $1 million through fake food sites in Pelican Rapids and Moorhead. According to federal prosecutors, Dual operated 2 fake meal sites claiming to serve over 40,000 meals to children every single week. Through just one site, he claimed to serve 6,000 meals to children every day, 7 days a week. To put that in perspective, that is more than double the population of Pelican Rapids, children and adults combined.
And now reports are coming out that some of the stolen money may have wound up in the hands of Al-Shabaab, a Somali-based terror group.
The scope of this fraud is absolutely staggering. We're not talking about a few people stealing lunch money. Federal sources tell us billions of dollars have been stolen since 2019, with much of the money flowing back to Somalia, where a cut goes directly to Al-Shabaab, the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group.
It's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can, but to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
Here's what makes this a national security crisis rather than just a fraud case. Federal investigators have confirmed that the money stolen from Minnesota taxpayers ended up in the hands of Al-Shabaab terrorists in Somalia. Federal sources have a saying in the Somalia community: when it rains in Minnesota, umbrellas go up in Mogadishu. That perfectly captures how Minnesota taxpayer money is flowing directly to Somalia, where terrorist organizations are taking their cut for every dollar that comes in abroad.
Somali fraud ring stealing millions and tens of millions of dollars from Medicaid and sending that money back to the motherland to support their friends, their families, or to just outright fund terrorism in a very dangerous Islamic country.
We're talking about a systematic pipeline where Minnesota Medicaid and nutrition program funds were being stolen through fake autism diagnosis and non-existent meal programs, then laundered overseas to support terrorist operations. This isn't just welfare fraud anymore. This is state-sponsored terrorist funding using American taxpayer dollars. The autism fraud component of this scheme is particularly disgusting because it targets programs designed to help the most vulnerable children. Federal funding from the autism services in Minnesota exploded from $3 million to nearly $400 million in just 5 years, largely because of this coordinated scam.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. The number of autism providers in Minnesota went from 41 to 326, in large part because of this scam. Claims that 1 in 16 Somalian 4-year-olds had been diagnosed with autism, a rate that would have been more than triple the average.
These were fabricated claims designed to steal money meant for genuinely disabled children. Think about the evil of this operation. They were literally stealing money from programs designed to help autistic children and using it to fund international terrorism. Every dollar that they stole was a dollar that couldn't help a child who actually needed therapy or support. While all this fraud was happening, we just learned that Timmy Tampon Walsh's administration failed to perform required safety checks on computer systems that determines who gets SNAP benefits.
Oh, no.
This created a massive vulnerability that allowed fraudsters to exploit the system with impunity.
Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. The program distributes nearly $70 million in benefits each month in Minnesota alone. Well, 5 Investigates has uncovered audits that show the state did not perform required security checks of the computer system that determines who is eligible to receive this money. It is a discovery that has SNAP recipients like Mateo Halbesleben worried about the safety of his personal data.
When you combine this security failure with the systematic fraud we've been documenting, you've got a perfect storm of criminal exploitation. This is what happens when you have weak leadership more concerned with political correctness than protecting taxpayer money. Timmy Tampon Walz's administration was so focused on not appearing discriminatory that they ignored obvious red flags and failed to implement basic security measures. This is exactly why President Trump suspended temporary protection status for Somalia nationals in Minnesota. When you have organized criminal networks stealing hundreds of millions of dollars and funneling money to terrorist organizations, continuing to provide immigration protection becomes a national security threat.
These are people that came here as refugees and then figure out how to scam the system even further. A lot of them lied to get into the country, lied about who they had married just to get in. They get here and they start stealing from us and sending it back home.
Trump's response was exactly what any rational leader would do. Get the hell out. When people come here as a refugee and immediately start stealing from taxpayers who welcome them, when they set up criminal enterprises that funded international terrorism, when they compromise our police departments and intimidate our law enforcement, they forfeited any right to remain in our country. The suspension of TPS sends a clear, absolute clear message that immigration benefits are a privilege that can be revoked when recipients engage in criminal activity that threatens national security. America, what we're witnessing in Minnesota is a complete breakdown of law and order and government accountability and immigration enforcement. When police chiefs have to apologize for acknowledging criminal activity, when officers declare loyalty to foreign ethnic groups over American law, when hundreds of millions in taxpayer money flows to terrorist organizations, you no longer have a functioning state government. The 78 defendant being charged shows this criminal enterprise is still growing and still being uncovered. Federal investigators estimate billions have been stolen since 2019, with much of that money ending up in the hands of al-Shabaab terrorists who use it to plan attacks against American interests. Timmy Tampon Walz's administration failed at an entire level. No security checks on benefit systems, no oversight of massive fraud schemes, no accountability for criminal networks operating with impunity. This is what happens when political correctness becomes more important than protecting taxpayers and national security. The forced apology by Police Chief O'Hare shows how completely the political establishment has been captured by criminal interests. When law enforcement can't even acknowledge crime statistics without groveling for forgiveness, you've lost control of your city. Trump's suspension for TPS for Somalia nationals was the only rational response to this particular crisis. When immigration benefits are being exploited by criminal networks that fund international terrorism, those benefits must be revoked immediately. Minnesota has become a cautionary tale to the entire country of what happens when weak leadership prioritizes political correctness over public safety and national security. Other states need to learn from this disaster before it spreads into other communities. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, Minnesota, that's crazy. I can't wait for more stories to pop up from Minnesota. This is going to be wild, especially New York after January 1st when Madani takes over. You're going to see a full load of people, of ICE agents and federal agents in New York City taking down all the illegals. It's going to be quite a show. Can't wait to watch. We'll see.
Organizers of the No Kings Alliance in the We Ain't Buying It campaign, urging Americans to withhold their purchasing power to protest. Quote, corporations enabling the Trump administration's abuses of power.
America, the boomers and white single ladies are back at it again with one of the nation's biggest protests that you never heard of. They launched something called the We Ain't Buying It campaign, targeting Amazon, Target, and Home Depot during Black Friday weekend because these companies supposedly caved to Trump's bias attacks on DEI. But here's what's absolutely hilarious. This boycott was so successful that it made a few heads turn in the wrong direction, by the way. While 168 million Americans were shopping this holiday weekend, these activists convinced themselves that their participation was going to bring corporate America to its knees by not shopping for 5 whole days.
No one's so successful.
We Ain't Buying It is a 5-day economic pressure campaign
So it's all about taking our dollars and taking our power back.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This case perfectly shows how out of touch activist groups think they can dictate corporate policy by threatening to withhold their participation in an economy that they probably weren't contributing much to anyways. Let me break down the math on this supposedly earth-shaking boycott. According to the organizers, 5 million people participated in their No Kings marches, an economic boycott. But as one expert perfectly pointed out, we're a country of 350 million people. So this represents 3% of the population trying to dictate the political affiliations of large businesses that serve everybody. Think about the arrogance here. 3% of the population thinks they can force major corporations to take political positions by threatening not to shop. Meanwhile, 168 million Americans were actually out spending money during the same weekend these activists were staging their economic pressure campaign.
Part of the campaign is urging shoppers to stop spending their money at large retail stores and instead shift their buying power to small, local businesses.
The contrast here is absolutely perfect. While 168 million Americans were participating in the actual economy, these activists were convincing themselves that they were making a difference by not participating. It's like trying to influence a football game by refusing to buy tickets you weren't going to buy anyways. Now let's debunk the central premise of this boycott, that Amazon, Target, and Home Depot somehow caved to Trump's attacks on DEI programs. What actually happened is that these companies made a business decision based on marketing realities and legal considerations, not political pressure.
Amazon, Target, and Home Depot the focus of a joint boycott from No Kings and We Ain't Buying It. According to the campaign's website, quote, this action is taking direct aim at Target for caving to this administration's biased attacks on DEI. Home Depot for allowing and colluding with ICE to kidnap our neighbors on their properties. And Amazon for funding this administration to secure their own corporate tax cuts.
Listen to their accusations. Target for caving to this administration's biased attacks on DEI. Home Depot for allowing and colluding with ICE to kidnap our neighbors. And Amazon for funding this administration to secure their own corporate tax cuts. Every single one of these claims is either false or a gross mischaracterization.
We Ain't Buying It is a 5-day economic pressure campaign.
What happened to your hair?
So it's all about taking our dollars and taking our power back.
Target didn't cave to anti-DEI attacks. They made a business decision based on the customer feedback and market research. Home Depot isn't colluding with ICE. They're following federal law like every other business should. Amazon isn't funding the administration. They're operating in a regulated economy where all businesses pay taxes and follow federal regulation. These activists have convinced themselves they're building economic muscle and teaching people they can vote with their dollars. But here's the reality check. Delaying purchases for 5 days has virtually no impact on major retailers beyond forcing them to carry inventory for a few extra days.
We want to build this muscle of economic non-cooperation, reminding people that you can vote with your dollars as well, and how powerful that is when we do it collectively.
These companies have weathered actual economic downturns, supply chain crises, global pandemics. A 5-day boycott by 3% or less of the population isn't even going to be a blimp on their radar. Activists talk about collective power and economic non-corporation, but they're fundamentally misunderstanding how retail economics actually work. These companies make billions of dollars in revenue annually. A temporary dip from less than 3% of the consumers isn't going to change their corporate governance or political positions. Here's the reality check these activists need. Local businesses depend on supply chains, logistics networks, and economic infrastructures that companies like Amazon, Target, and Home Depot actually provide. When you attack major retailers, you're attacking the foundation that makes local commerce possible.
Aside from the politics behind the campaign, local business owner Justice Smithers shared what he's experienced as the push to shop small
continues.
I have recognized a big shift where people are wanting to be more intentional with their buying power and where their money is going.
The local business owner they interviewed talked about people being more intentional with their buying power, which is absolutely fine. But that's a personal choice, not a political weapon. Most people shop based on convenience, price, and quality, not corporate political position on DEI programs. What these activists refuse to acknowledge is the historical pattern of failed boycotts against major corporations. The Associated Press reported that a 24-hour economic blackout in February made little impact, but organizers claim the movement starts small and snowball over time.
If we keep doing it, it snowballs, it gets bigger.
Protest organizers asking consumers to spend time with family.
This is classic activist delusion. When their boycotts fail to achieve immediate results, they claim it's part of a long-term strategy that will eventually snowball. But the reality is that most corporate boycotts fail because they're based on political positions that don't align with the majority of the customers.
Well, we have to stand together. We have to stand together for inclusion. We have to stand together for each other's rights. We have to stand together for those people that are being grabbed off the streets for no good reason.
Listen to their rhetoric about people being grabbed off the street for no good reason. They're framing legal immigration enforcement as some kind of human rights violation. This is the same mindset that thinks corporations should take political positions against federal law enforcement. Let's be honest about the actual economic impact of this particular boycott. It is essentially zero. Americans spend $11.8 billion on Black Friday alone and $13.3 billion on Cyber Monday just last year. The idea that less than 3% of the population are going to delay purchases for 5 days is going to change corporate behavior is honestly, guys, very, very laughable here. The protesters claim they want to see empty stores throughout the weekend, but the reality is that 168 million Americans were shopping. While less than 3% of the population, these activists were patting themselves on the back for not participating in the economy. These stores were not empty. They were packed with actual customers.
We want to see empty stores today and throughout the weekend.
Instead, the campaign is urging shoppers to spend their money at local mom and pop businesses.
The fundamental problem with this boycott is that it's based on political positions that most Americans don't share. The majority of consumers don't want corporations taking political stances. They want good products at a fair price with reliable service. The most ridiculous aspect of these boycotts is that activists claim that they're fighting against an authoritarian regime by not shopping at Target. They're positioning retail boycotts as some kind of resistance movements against tyranny, when they're really just upset that companies won't take their preferred political positions.
Our hope is that this will send a big message to these corporations who, once again, are simply bending the knee to this authoritarian regime.
This is peak boomer and white single cat lady activism, comparing not shopping to Home Depot to resisting authoritarianism. They've convinced themselves that their consumer choices are acts of political resistance when they're really just inconveniencing themselves for no meaningful impact at all. The activists talk about corporations bending the knee to an authoritarian regime, but what they really mean is that companies are following federal law and making business decisions based off market realities rather than activist demands. America, this "we ain't buying it" campaign perfectly captures everything wrong with modern activist movements. You have 3% of the population trying to dictate corporate policy through economic threats that have zero meaningful impact, while 168 million Americans are actually participating in the economy that they're trying to disrupt. The boomers and the white single ladies behind this boycott have convinced themselves they're building economic muscle and fighting authoritarianism by not shopping for 5 days. In reality, they're just removing themselves from an economy that functions perfectly well without their participation. This boycott backfired so spectacularly that they're actually highlighting how irrelevant these activist groups are to the broader economy. These boomers and white single cat ladies thought that they were making a statement. But
You're
all
not
they
cancel
did
the
was
whole
prove that
season. Why
American
only 5
commerce
days? 5
functions
days is
just fine
nothing.
without their participation. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comments
I could go
section
5
down
days without
below.
buying nothing.
Smash the
I'll
like
buy
button if you
something.
kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Texas is great upload, man. that boycott song is so stupid. Like, don't shop for 5 days. Like, bitch, I could go without shopping for 5 days and I'll be fine. Look, the train of truth is here. Yeah, it's just weird. Fucking people are weird. 5 days. Oh my god, don't go shopping for 5 days. You gotta punish Target and punish all the people that bend their knee to Trump. Like, you sound stupid. You sound like a cult. You sound like you're fucking hypnotized. Fuck, man. What's wrong with these people? You wonder how the hell their upbringing was, right? And you figure how their brains got developed. Like, what schools they went to, what teachers taught these people, what influenced this kid throughout its life. There needs to be like a Truman Show type of fucking, like, cameras all around an individual to follow their whole lives. Because, like, there's a lot of weird motherfuckers out there. Damn, man. All right, let's see what else we got here. We got another Tyson DeLacruz. Let's go ahead and watch. We're playing catch up.
2 brothers have been arrested, charged with threatening to shoot police and ICE agents, and one of them is an assistant principal at Kempsville High School.
America, we just uncovered one of the most disturbing cases of anti-ICE terrorism that I've ever seen. John Bennett, a 54-year-old assistant principal at Kempsville High School in Virginia Beach, was arrested alongside his brother for plotting to assassinate ICE agents and police officers using armor-piercing explosive rounds. But here's what's absolutely chilling. This quote-unquote educator who worked with children every day was overheard at a restaurant discussing how he wanted to go hunting for law enforcement officers and planning a trip to Las Vegas to meet like-minded people to develop enforcement ideas and plans.
A Virginia high school assistant principal and his brother are accused of planning violence against ICE agents. An off-duty police officer reportedly overheard the brothers discussing their alleged plans at a restaurant.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This case exposes how anti-ICE derangement syndrome has infected our education system to the point where school administrators are literally plotting terrorist attack against federal agents trying to protect our communities. Let me break down exactly how this quote-unquote terror plot was discovered, allegedly for the YouTube purposes. On Saturday, November 15th, an off-duty Norfolk police officer was having lunch at a Virginia Beach restaurant when he overheard 2 brothers having what can only be described as terrorist planning sessions.
Court documents reveal several disturbing details about this investigation. So let's send it over to 10 on Your Side's Ethan Krause, who joins us live outside of that school. Ethan.
Court documents reveal that the brothers were overheard talking at a restaurant where Mark Bennett mentioned how he had an assault rifle with the ability to utilize explosive rounds that could penetrate protective vests.
Think about that. We're not just talking about shooting ICE agents, which is bad all on its own. They were specifically planning to use ammunition designed to defeat body armor. The conversation got even more disturbing when Mark Bennett planned to fly to Las Vegas to meet what he called quote-unquote like-minded people and return with enforcement ideas and plans. This wasn't just angry white liberal talk. This was operational planning to coordinate attacks against federal law enforcement. Here's what makes this case absolutely terrifying. John Bennett isn't some random anti-government extremist. He's been working in Virginia Beach City public schools since 2009, shaping young kids' minds for over 15 years as an assistant principal at Kempsville High School. When his brother was discussing assault rifle and armor-piercing rounds, John Bennett didn't try to calm him down or suggest they find legal ways to address their concerns. Instead, according to court documents, he said he wanted to go hunting and expressed enthusiasm for joining his brother on the Las Vegas trip to meet other potential terrorists.
Both are from Virginia Beach, charged with conspiracy to commit malicious wounding. We're told one of them, John Bennett, was arrested Wednesday morning. Mark Bennett was taken into custody at Norfolk International Airport with help from airport police.
Folks, this is an educator who works with teenagers every single day, and he's fantasizing about hunting down federal agents like animals. What kind of poison has been spreading to his students under his supervision? What type of anti-law enforcement rhetoric has been coming out of Kempsville High School? The most chilling aspect of this case is Mark Bennett's plan to travel to Las Vegas for what can only be described as terrorist coordination meetings.
What a chilling story. This is an educator of children who is plotting a violent attempt against our law enforcement. He went on to say that he wanted to hunt these law enforcement officers, that he had purchased a high-powered rifle that would have the ability to pierce the body armor of a law enforcement agent.
Mark Bennett was literally scheduled to fly to Las Vegas on November 19th, the same day he was arrested at Norfolk International Airport. Think about what would have happened here if the off-duty police officer hadn't overheard their conversation and reported it to authorities. We could have been looking at a coordinated attack against ICE agents and police officers planned by a network of anti-government extremists meeting in Las Vegas. This wasn't just two brothers talking tough. This was operational planning for domestic terrorism. What drove a school administrator to plot terrorist attack against federal agents? According to DHS officials, we're seeing the deadly consequences of years of anti-ICE propaganda from the Democratic politicians and mainstream media.
I think there's a serious amount of really ICE derangement syndrome going on. People are falling prey to hoaxes. We're seeing Democrat politicians continue to push violent rhetoric against our law enforcement, likening them to slave patrols, likening them to Nazis, the Gestapo. Deranged individuals like this one, people who are mentally unwell, are going to take matters into their own hands.
This is exactly what happens when you have politicians like Alexandria Acosta, AOC, calling ICE facilities concentration camps and comparing federal agents to Nazis. When you have media outlets constantly portraying immigration enforcement as some kind of human rights violation, you create an environment where unstable people think violence against federal agents is justified.
We've seen our agents be stalked, doxxed, their families where they live being put on the dark web, where their children go to school, where their wives and families work. It has to stop now.
When these brothers appeared in court, their defense attorney tried to downplay this terrorist plot as just two brothers having a conversation, joking around. They claimed the Las Vegas trip was actually a previously planned trip to an F1 race with his son.
The defense for both defendants claimed that this was simply a conversation between brothers who hadn't seen each other for some time, and that much of what was said between the two were jokes. The defense for Mark Bennett even stating that it was a, quote, Seinfeld conversation. The defense also added that the trip to Vegas mentioned by Mark Bennett was a previously planned trip to an F1 race with his son.
So let me get this straight. Discussing armor-piercing rounds designed to kill federal agents is just quote-unquote joking around. Planning to meet with like-minded people to develop enforcement ideas and plans is just casual conversation. This defense is absolutely insulting to anyone with common sense. Both brothers were granted $25,000 bond with GPS monitoring and are prohibited from contacting each other, which in my opinion is not enough. They're represented by different lawyers, which tells you even their legal team understands how serious these charges are. The fact that John Bennett has been working in Virginia Beach schools since 2009 raises some serious questions about what kind of extremist ideology have been festering in our education system. We've talked about this a lot on this channel. This man has been in a position of authority over teenagers for over 15 years while harboring violent fantasies about killing federal agents.
Wow.
Virginia Beach schools confirmed that Bennett is currently on leave, but in my opinion, that is not enough. We need a full investigation into what kind of anti-law enforcement propaganda this man has been spreading to students. We need to know if other educators in the district share his extremist views.
Now, the police chief for the city, Paul Newdigate, he's calling the accusations against the pair incredibly alarming.
When school administrators are plotting terrorist attack against federal agents, it's not just a criminal justice issue. It is a national security crisis on our education system. How many other educators across the country have been radicalized by years of anti-ICE propaganda? How many are spreading this poison to the next generation of Americans? Both Bennett brothers are facing federal conspiracy charges to commit malicious wounding, which carries some serious prison time. But given the scope of their planning and specific targeting of federal agents, prosecutors should be considering domestic terrorism enhancements.
There's going to be real consequences for this individual and anyone who seeks to threaten or bring harm to our law enforcement.
The timing of this arrest is particularly significant, given the increased threats against ICE agents as the Trump administration ramps up deportation operations. We're seeing a coordinated campaign of intimidation and violence against federal agents trying to enforce our immigration laws. America, this case exposes something deeply disturbing about the state of our education system. When assistant principals are plotting terrorist attacks against federal agents, we have a crisis that goes far beyond individual criminal behavior. John Bennett spent 15 years in a position of authority over young people while harboring violent fantasies about killing ICE agents and police officers. The anti-law enforcement propaganda that has infected our schools has created an environment where educators think terrorism is justified. The fact that these brothers were planning to coordinate with other like-minded people in Las Vegas suggests this isn't an isolated incident. We may be looking at a broader network of anti-ICE extremists planning coordinated attacks against federal agents. The defense's attempt to dismiss this as joking around shows how normalized anti-law enforcement violence has become in certain circles. When plotting to kill federal agents with armor-piercing rounds is considered quote-unquote casual conversation, we have a serious cultural problem. Virginia police deserve credit for taking this threat seriously and working with federal authorities to prevent what could have been a serious attack. The off-duty Norfolk officer who reported this conversation may have saved many, many lives. When school administrators are plotting to assassinate federal agents, it's time for a complete overhaul of who we've allowed to influence our children. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Tyson, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have my kids going to that school. Hell no. Crazy. That's just too much right now. Mm-mm. All right, so we're here with I guess this is the last show. Let me make sure. Just double check here. We got anything else going on? Yep. So this is going to be the last one for the night. So, and it's another Tyson DeLacruz. So let's watch and enjoy.
The largest collection of elite private schools in America have been purchased by a private equity group deceptively named Primavera Private Equity. Guess who owns them?
America. We just uncovered the most disturbing infiltration of our education system in modern history. Chinese Communist Party-linked private equity firms now control over 350 elite private schools across the United States, while Chinese-owned tutoring companies have quietly embedded themselves in public school classrooms nationwide. But here's what's absolutely terrifying. This isn't just about money or business deals. The Justice Department has confirmed that China is using these educational platforms to access sensitive student data and potentially indoctrinate the next generation of American leaders with soft ideology and woke propaganda. This is why, if you can, you need to homeschool your kids, because you don't want somebody else indoctrinating your children with foreign influence and radical ideologies.
Chinese-owned groups have been buying up schools across the United States.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLacruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This case exposes a systematic Chinese intelligence operation that's been operating under our noses for years, targeting both elite private schools and public education systems. Let's start with what we just discovered just a year ago about Chinese infiltration in public schools. Tutor.com, an online tutoring service used by school districts in 25 25 states was quietly bought by Primavera Capital, a company with direct ties to TikTok, ByteDance, and Chinese Communist Party entities.
An online company offering support for students as young as kindergarten. Well, public schools nationwide are using a student tutoring service recently flagged for its connection to a Chinese firm, and it's even disclosed on their website.
Think about the scope of this operation. Over 100 school districts were using a platform that had access to sensitive student data, and most American families had no idea that there was a Chinese Communist Party influence on their child's iPads. This obviously wasn't disclosed to parents or school boards until investigators started digging.
So how did you find out that this, it's on the website, but was there any government alert saying, hey, schools, you should know this is a Chinese affiliated company? How did it come to your organization's attention?
No, as you alluded to, the fact that this is really, it's on their website, but it's really not been brought to anyone's attention. It was
the fact that this connection never really was brought to anybody's attention and was quietly bought several years ago shows the deliberate stealth nature of this operation. Chinese entities don't accidentally acquire American education platforms. This is strategic infiltration designed to access student data and influence curriculum. What makes this tutoring company infiltration so dangerous is the type of data that they're collecting. We're talking about detailed information on American children from kindergarten through high school, including learning pattern, academic performance, and personal information that could be used for intelligent purposes.
This platform has access to sensitive student data, and Senator Tom Cotton has already flagged this as an issue of concern because the Department of Defense uses it for their education agency. But this is something that most American families have no idea is in their backyards.
Because Chinese entities were probably accessing data from military families and defense personnel children.
The founder has ties to two Chinese communist-linked entities tied to the United Front, and so we know that there is very much a soft power element going on with the Chinese government putting teachers and curriculum into our school through the Confucius Classrooms program, but then for them also to have access through the back door, through TikTok, through these programs that are in our kids' schools, being paid for with our tax dollars.
This was an intelligence operation. The United Front is China's primary influence and espionage organization, and they were getting access to American student data through taxpayer-funded programs. But the tutoring company infiltration was just the beginning. We now know that the Chinese Communist Party linked private equity firms control over 350 of the most elite schools in the United States through Primavera Capital Group and Spring Education Group.
A bunch of billionaire private equity investors got together in Sun Valley, Idaho, and made a decision that they were going to start investing in things that were essential to the services that we would find a way to pay for no matter what.
This wasn't random investment. In 2020, billionaire private equity investors specifically targeted services that families would pay for no matter what, because it mattered to them emotionally. Private schools were at the heart of the strategy because they knew parents would go into debt to afford elite education for their children.
And this is only one of the private equity firms that has done this. There are many with international investors, and they now own more than 350 of the most elite preparatory academies in the United States.
Primavera Capital Group is funded by Hong Kong nationals who are members of the Chinese Communist Party with direct allegiance to China. They acquired Spring Education Group and now own more than 350 of the most elite preparatory schools that charge $50,000 a year and educate the children of politicians, business leaders, and military officials. These Chinese-controlled private equity firms haven't just acquired schools, they also acquired the book publishers and curriculum developers that supply educational materials to these institutions. Think about the implications here. Chinese Communist Party entities now control what American future leaders learn from elementary school through high school graduation. They control the schools, they control the curriculum, they control the textbooks and the digital platforms. This is comprehensive educational capture.
Simon & Schuster was a really big concern. They were acquired by private equity 2 years ago. and they own 37 book publishing brands, including all of the largest book publishers of scholastic materials in the United States.
When you control the publishers, you control what gets taught in the classrooms across America. And here's where it gets even more disturbing. These same private equity firms that have Chinese connections are also funding woke education incentives through companies like Kellogg's, which is controlled by BlackRock and Blackstone investors. Kellogg's, under the direction of BlackRock and Blackstone investors, has funded entire programs for woke education and ideology in schools. This creates a perfect storm where Chinese influence entities are promoting both soft communist ideology and American woke progressivism to undermine traditional American values.
Is it in China's best interests for our children to learn to love America or not?
Oh, absolutely.
Is it in China's best interest for us to all learn to get along or to stay divided?
The answer here is obvious. China benefits when American children are taught to hate their own country or when American society remains divided. Here is the ultimate irony of this entire situation. The government was worried about TikTok corrupting American youth with Chinese propaganda, but Chinese nationals were already controlling the most elite preparatory schools where politicians' children actually attend. The investigator discovered this school takeover
crazy.
while researching TikTok's influence on American youth. She realized that if Chinese nationals own the most elite preparatory schools that politicians' children actually attend, the TikTok threat was nothing compared to the direct control over American educational institutions.
So important for Americans to understand that CCP.
I'm telling you, the enemy is already within. The enemy is within our system already. They're already
America
here.
as its arch enemy and has been never stopped working to weaken and undermine the United States in order to replace it to become world superpower.
This comprehensive Chinese infiltration of American education, from public school tutoring platforms to elite private schools to curriculum publishers, makes this case for homeschooling even stronger than ever before. When foreign adversaries control both schools and materials used to educate American children, parents need and should take control of their children's education.
What they really want is generations of people like Hassan Piker. This influencer just went to China and then told his millions of followers that China offered the solution for America. Communism is the solution to the problems that capitalism created in America. That is what they want. And that is very, very dangerous.
Parents need to investigate who owns their children's schools, where the curriculum comes from, and what digital platforms are being used in the classroom. But more importantly, they need to consider whether they want to entrust their child's education to institutions that may be controlled by foreign adversaries or influenced by woke ideology. The experts' warning about crony capitalism and corporate capture of our government applies directly to education. When Chinese entities can acquire American schools and curriculum publishers without meaningful oversight, we've lost control of one of our most crucial national security assets, the education of our children. America, what we uncovered represents the most comprehensive foreign infiltration of American education in our nation's history. Chinese Communist Party linked entities now control over 350 elite private schools, have embedded tutoring platforms in public schools across 25 states, and own publishers that create educational materials used nationwide. This is strategic warfare targeting the minds of American children. When foreign adversaries control what our kids learn from kindergarten through high school graduation, they're shaping the next generation of American leaders to serve Chinese interests rather than American values. Whether it's the Chinese communist influence or American progressive ideology, the goal is the same: to undermine traditional American principles and create division in our society. The TikTok controversy was a distraction from the real threat: direct Chinese control over American educational institutions. While politicians worry about social media influence, Chinese entities entities were quietly acquiring the schools where those same politicians send their own children. The Department of Defense using Chinese-controlled tutoring platforms shows how deep this infiltration goes. When military families and children are being educated through Chinese-controlled systems, we have a national security crisis that goes far beyond social media apps. This is why homeschooling has become more important than ever. When you can't trust public schools, private schools, or curriculum publishers that supply educational materials, the absolute only way to ensure your children receive an American education with American values is to take direct control of their learning. Parents who can homeschool should seriously consider it. Those who can't need to become much more involved in investigating their children's schools, demanding transparency about ownership and curriculum resources, and fighting back against foreign influence in American education. The future of American civilization depends on raising children who love our country, understand our history, and are committed to preserving its values. When foreign adversaries control our education institutions, that future is in serious jeopardy. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
All right, thank you, Tyson. On this one, the only thing with the homeschooling, that's where I have a problem. That's where I will debate Tyson on. I would go head on with Tyson because I just had we just up here in Connecticut had an issue with an individual that took over and wanted to homeschool her child, ended up killing her child allegedly, and was dead and put into a container for a whole year. And then she was just dumped behind a house like garbage. And the fact that the residents called the police and they discovered what they discovered, and that was Mimi up here in Connecticut. I know he knows a bit about the story. That's where I have my problem with the homeschooling, because you have to vet them, right? You have to make sure every year that the kid's okay, and the kid has to go through, to the doctors and so forth. Like this little girl, a whole year, and nobody like threw up any red flags or anything. Like the kid was gone for like a whole year and nobody said shit. Yeah. But I did go out and I lit some candles for Mimi the other day. You could catch it on my channel. I went out for a bit. And it's so sad, that whole situation is just very sad and disturbing. Very disturbing. But like how you get around this education stuff, right? Because like the problem is the safety of the child, and sometimes kids are not safe around their parents. Not all the times they're not, especially when you have parents that are kind of like borderline. I wouldn't say schizo, but kind of like how would you call it? You wouldn't call it manic. You would call it like like some kind of like split personality disorder or something like that. Psychotic, I don't know. But it's fucked up. That's all I know. But that's the end of the show. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate you guys. And we watched and catched up on Tyson tonight. So there's a lot of videos that I missed out on Tyson, but I made it up tonight. And hopefully he'll probably be here tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. Other than that, have a good morning, good afternoon, and a good night. and I'll catch y'all on the flip side, and see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, so it's Tyson. So we'll see. We'll get him on here and go through some of this stuff. We'll talk about the Mimi stuff, and we'll give opinions, right? Because he wants some comments and opinions. I give it to him to his face. I don't go to his to the chat and leave a message. No, man, I go to the horse's mouth. I'm like, look, man, yeah, I got my opinion. But like, what happened to a lot of these kids that were homeschooled and ended up like not being with us anymore? It's a problem. And do parents have to be vetted in some way or be qualified in some way to actually be able to teach their children? Like, I don't think you just give your children and just like you teach them, And it's like, I don't know. I don't know how that works. But however, get the kids educated properly and don't let them get influenced by stupidity, especially like the stupid TikTok stupidity. Um, I don't have no TikTok. I don't have no Facebook. I don't have any of that shit. Like I don't use I think I have Facebook, but I don't use it. I haven't used that shit in like forever. And to get off of that, it's like a mission impossible. But other than that, just keep to the basics. Like for me, YouTube. If I'm gonna get any information, I definitely get it through YouTube. They're pretty quick with getting information passed to me. I don't need to go searching like on X or any other like Google or any of that stuff. I don't need to go into any of those things. I just either I hear from word of mouth or whatever I come through to it. And I watch a lot of this stuff with you guys for the first time, so it was a pretty eventful night. That's for sure. All right, guys, I'm going to bed. You guys go to bed too. Have a good night, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.